The Creature Commandos are a team of soldiers in World War II who volunteered or were forced into an experiment that gives them the abilities and appearance of the classic Universal movie monsters: Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and others. They appeared in DC's Weird War Tales anthology series, where they were sent on various missions by the US government, such as rescuing a scientist from behind enemy lines, investigating an island full of dinosaurs, and slaughtering a bunch of brainwashed Nazi children! This is a real panel from a real comic that really exists, that I own, and I love everything about it. It is also way cooler than anything that occurs in the completely unrelated HBO Max animated original series of the same name by James Gunn. This show is also the first official entry into James Gunn's new DCU, his equivalent of the Marvel MCU, an interconnected series of films and TV shows all set in the same continuity. This is what got me to give this show a try, and also the first of many problems that the show has. This is how you start your big interconnected universe? Creature Commandos?
Where's good stuff, man?
A straight-to-streaming adult animated series based on an extremely obscure war comic from 45 years ago?
Are you nuts, dude? You need stuff to explode! Go boom!
Granted, as I said, he basically didn't bother adapting that book anyway, but if you're trying to get people excited for a new cinematic superhero franchise, this is a weak way to start. You really should have just led with Superman and worry about the rest later. If you've been following the reports of the DCU's announced slate of projects, you'll know that the ship is already sinking. Let's take a look at what we got here. Okay, so the original plan was to dump off all the old DCEU projects that they knew were bad but wouldn't admit, like Shazam and The Flash. But then supposedly there was a universal reset? I mean, I guess you could call Ezra Miller destroying the space-time continuum, his career, and cinema as an art form as a reset, but the movie didn't really address what was changed and what wasn't, and what the new film continuity is. Then Blue Beetle and Aquaman, 2 more duds. Then Creature Commandos. Then... What? Waller? Her own whole show? Just make a Suicide Squad show. That's what Peacemaker and Creature Commandos both are, essentially. And played by Viola Davis? What happened to a reset, James? Oh, or did you just mean a reset on every other filmmaker's hard work? You're in charge now, so everything you made and all the actors you like get to keep their jobs. Very diplomatic leadership there, bud. Not biased at all. And if you look at the rest of the slate, bias is the word of the day. 2 normal, logical choices with Superman and Green Lantern. Then, the Authority?
So you're gonna tell me that you don't have no black cats, no Roman candles, or screaming mimes? No.
Show of hands, right now, how many of you watching this are aware of what the Authority even is? So we're gonna get a fucked up alternate universe Justice League before we even get a Justice League? Dude, Warner Brothers, what are you doing? Do you hate money? Then Paradise Lost, what the fuck is that?
Oh, come on, man. You don't got no lady fingers, buzz buttles, snicker bombs, church burners, finger blasters, gut busters, zippity doo-dahs, or crap flappers?
A Themyscira prequel? So a Wonder Woman show without Wonder Woman. Great. Then we finally get a proper Batman movie with a Robin. But, oh wait, it's nobody's favorite Robin, Damian Wayne. Fuck! Then Booster Gold? Then Supergirl? And you cap it off with Swamp Thing?
You're gonna stand there, owning a fireworks stand, and tell me you don't have no whistling bungholes, no spleen splitters, whisker biscuits, honky lighters, Husker do's, Husker don'ts, cherry bombs, nipsy daisers, with or without the scooter stick, or one single whistling kitty chaser?
What is the plan here? Well, it doesn't matter anymore because the plan has changed several times since this announcement. As of March 2025, the only confirmed projects currently in production or post-production are Superman, Supergirl, Lanterns, Peacemaker Season 2, Lord help me, and Clayface! They have no plan. They're just grasping at straws here. Honestly, I'm going to do James a favor and tell him what his canon is since he doesn't seem to understand how it works. Superman. That's it. That's where your universe starts, and until it's successful, you have nothing else. The reason I'm going so hard on Gunn here is because not only is he a known fibber, but he is also a very particular man with very particular tastes. He likes what he likes, and he's not ashamed of it. And that's all well and good. But now that you've been given the keys to the kingdom of DC on film, you have to be a little more mature and think about what the wider audience likes.
Well, that might be your problem. It's not what you like, it's the consumer.
Most of these projects are things that James likes specifically from DC Comics, not necessarily things the audience likes or that make sense to start with when you're building a cinematic universe. Just like how he picked the actors he liked and wanted to retain from Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. The fans wanted Henry Cavill back as Superman, but James didn't, so Henry lost a job. But James likes Viola Davis and John Cena and James' wife, Jennifer Holland, so they all get to stay. Do you think people don't see exactly what you're doing? How are the audience supposed to trust or respect your integrity or decision-making as the head creative executive at DC when you make such openly biased decisions that benefit you and your friends and not the fans that you're supposed to be making stories for and expecting to give you money in return? But anyway, that's all meta-criticism over the business practices and decision-making of these future projects. The real reason I bring all of this up is that James Gunn doesn't think these decisions affect the canon of the stories he's telling or the audience's perception of them. And Creature Commandos is a perfect example of this complete disregard for canon or for audience immersion. The problem this show creates for itself immediately is that it is both canon to the previous DCEU and to James Gunn's new DCU. James tells you that this is fine and to just ignore it and let him have his toys. I say, no fucking way. Don't get me wrong, I don't have any love for the DCEU. I have no problem telling you that not a single film from that universe is good. Not one. But James wants to be able to shit all over that film series, reboot it, and then pick all the scraps of things he made in that universe out of the garbage heap, dust them off, and tell you they're still good to eat. And I say no. The Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, and anything that features Viola Davis as Amanda Waller are DCEU canon. That means every project James makes with his darlings from those two shows in it is DCEU canon, not DCU canon. Snyder's Justice League appears in the final episode of Peacemaker. Amanda Waller is in Black Adam and Shazam 2. You should have made it a clean break, James, and killed all your darlings, but you wanted to have what you wanted, and you expected the audience to just wipe their memories of that previous canon and accept whatever bullshit you spoon-feed them. I may not have been a huge fan of the Snyderverse, but there's a huge portion of the DC fanbase who are, and who loved Henry Cavill's Superman. And you basically just told all those fans to go fuck themselves, but you also expect them to pretend your universe makes sense. It doesn't. Congratulations, James, your cinematic brainchild is stillborn. It's dead before you even release your first film. Whether he wants to admit it or not, this will be a flaw in all future projects of his, if he continues to use actors and designs and events from that continuity as canon in his new universe. And I will continue to call it out as such. Now that I got all that out of my system, we can go through the show and see how many problems it has. Spoiler alert, it's a lot. Without further ado, let's jump right in. We open up at Belle Rev Correctional, where a convenient news report is doing Amanda Waller's exposition for her.
The battalion, calling themselves the Sons of Themyscira, violently crossed the border into Pakistan. The Sons are said to be working at the behest of the rogue Amazonian and reputed sorceress Circe. Circe claims to be the rightful heir to the throne of the perhaps mythical, perhaps real, all-female island nation of Themyscira.
Ah, yes, Circe. Not an Amazonian, not heir to the throne, and too damn good a character for this show. But we do learn that in this universe, the status of Themyscira and the Amazons is dubious to the general public, even though they show a photo of a bunch of Amazons on Themyscira and they are posing for the photograph even though nobody is allowed to go there. Then we get a look at the Sons of Themyscira. Oh boy. Now, I had never heard of these guys until this show, so I looked them up, and in the New 52, the Sons were literally the discarded offspring of the Amazons who, when they went out on mating voyages and came back pregnant with boys instead of girls, intended to kill them in their cribs. The Greek god Hephaestus made a deal with Queen Hippolyta to trade the Sons for his fine weapons and raise them as his apprentices in his forge. I haven't read this comic, but that's a pretty interesting idea, actually. How do the Amazons keep their culture alive, and what do they do when they have sons and not daughters? A very interesting question that, while I can't speak to the execution of in that comic, still sounds like a story worth exploring. But James Gunn decided that he didn't give a shit about that writer's idea and used them as a joke to mock somebody. Someone, or a group of someones, that James doesn't like and finds it worthwhile to spend several years and millions of dollars making a show about how much they suck and how sexist they are instead of just blocking them on Twitter. I'm not going to attribute specific ideological motivation here, but if you've spent any time on the internet or seen a meme before, I think you get the idea. If you're a man, potentially straight and white, and are perceived as being sexist or misogynist or radical or right-wing, this is you. Neckbeards, incels, Proud Boys, Snyderverse fans, YouTubers who make videos making fun of James Gunn. Choose your preferred group of hated males on the internet. The Sons are a Rorschach test of whichever type of guys you hate most. Especially if they use terms like woke feminist. You're a millionaire filmmaker, James. You don't think this is just a little bit beneath you? No? Good. As long as we're both on the same page here. Taking the low road is fine with me. And it wouldn't be so bad if you hadn't done this joke right before showing us Rick Flag Sr., who looks pretty much exactly like a buff power fantasy version of James Gunn with his exact white hair and beard. This is the billion-dollar corporation equivalent of, I drew myself as the Chad and you as the Soyjack, therefore I win the argument. Amanda says that they're helping Pekolistan because they are a backwards-ass country that's never taken advantage of their natural resources in reference to the petroleum fields that they are willing to give the U.S. control over in exchange for protection. Well, that move in and of itself shows an ability to take advantage of valuable resources through bargaining, so you're wrong, but I'm guessing she means they're a third-world country without much industry or infrastructure. Noted. But why on earth would you use a team of supervillains like Task Force X for a protection detail? Cersei's pretty powerful, so I know Special Forces would probably be a waste, but isn't there at least one government-friendly superhero who might help out? Like Captain Atom? Or Wonder Woman, since it's her villain in the first place? According to Flag, Peacemaker is definitely canon because Waller's daughter exposing Amanda's use of Peacemaker and Vigilante to cover up Project Butterfly means that she is no longer allowed to use human prisoners as mission operatives, thus setting up the premise for the show. Badly. You'll see why in a minute. Amanda's new plan is to, arguably, circumvent Congress's order not to use human prisoners by picking operatives for Task Force X who don't legally qualify as humans. Okay, good luck arguing that in front of the Supreme Court for your violation of human rights trial, because if these prisoners are not human, that means they didn't get arrested or tried because those are civil rights reserved for humans. Which means instead, Argus just scooped these guys up and choppered them off to a black site without informing her superiors, which is just as bad as forcing human prisoners to risk their lives in combat zones because I highly doubt Congress would agree that these people don't qualify as human just because you say so. I certainly don't. First, we meet the bride. Flag immediately asks how she's not human, and Amanda says, "Is a corpse human?" Yes, especially if it's a human corpse. Arguably, she is several humans, and we're going to find out very quickly and repeatedly throughout the show that the whole human-non-human thing is never actually defined and is wildly inconsistent. Next, we get Dr. Phosphorus, a meta-human, hint hint, who has radioactive skin and can generate intense heat. Then she makes a joke about Rick's hesitance to be near a walking isotope and doesn't bother actually providing radiation protection. Also, how the fuck can he be using his powers right now inside a prison? No power dampener for your highly deadly non-human prisoner who hates you? Fuck security protocols, am I right? Oh, great, Weasel is back. I mean, I don't hate him, but he was a joke from the Suicide Squad. One James was very clearly proud of and couldn't bear to part with. He's technically not human in this version, I guess, even though he is in the comics. We also use him to canonize that film because they mention Rick Flag Jr. dying on that mission, which is an excellent time to bring up this point. Rick Flag Sr. How the fuck is he alive, here, still active military, and our protagonist? Typically in the comics, Flag Sr. died during a mission when Jr. was young, inspiring him to join the military like his father and serve his country. Now, Jr. is dead and we get a 60-year-old general in peak physical condition who's going on active missions despite his incredibly high rank? You might as well have just pretended Flag didn't die at this point. Moving on to G.I. Robot, definitely not human, also possibly broken as his programming detects a swastika in a stack of Jenga blocks that is definitely not there. He is also specifically programmed to hunt Nazis, not follow orders or target enemy combatants, just Nazis. I wonder what you're gonna do with that. Anyway, Wait, what the fuck? Why the fuck does he have bullets for his gun arms in prison? I had the same problem with X-Men 97, even though I kind of liked that show. Stop animating your characters using their insanely dangerous powers in casual situations like it's no big deal just because it looks cool. Everything you show the audience has significance, and I'm not going to ignore it just because you couldn't control yourself. That prisoner has a loaded machine gun in his cell. Do I need to explain why that's bad security protocol? Fuck! Finally, Nina. Amanda makes up a bunch of bullshit things about her to keep Rick's confidence up because Amanda in this universe is a brain-dead poser who apparently got to her position entirely by luck. Amanda opens the cell to introduce Rick to his team, and the three most violent prisoners immediately attack them. I like that. Except, Amanda hits the button on her phone, we went back to that instead of the switches, which were definitely better, and shocks everyone in the room. So now the control chips shock you instead of blowing you up, and not just one at a time, but all at once regardless of who deserved it. Dumb. But also, if Dr. Phosphorus is radioactive, how does his chip even work? The radiation would have shorted out the electronics or burnt it up the minute you injected him. I genuinely don't think he's the type of prisoner you can contain and send on missions. He's way too OP. He's the kind of guy you bury in a special cell deep underground. Also, if the bride was brought to life with electricity, would zapping her even hurt her or slow her down at all? And then we get our show intro and theme, which is pretty cool looking and the music is fun. Anyway, now that our main cast is introduced, I can point out the obvious. This is not Creature Commandos. This is just Suicide Squad again with uglier members, some of whom were in the Frankenstein Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. comic. But the premise of the show and all the characters involved have absolutely nothing to do with Creature Commandos. The closest are G.I. Robot, who went on a couple of missions with the team but was never an official member, and Nina, who in the New 52 Shade series was a scientist who created that version of the Commandos. This is just a poorly justified Task Force X because James Gunn is a one-trick pony who doesn't know how to write anything new or adapt anything properly. Also, ew! James! You animated yourself writing this garbage in the opening credits? Cringe! So then they go. They get on a helicopter and waste some time with some unfunny jokes that further ruin everyone's character, like G.I. Robot being worried about secret Nazis around every corner, confirming further that his programming is either flawed or damaged because why the fuck would a weasel man be a Nazi? The bride hints that she has some past connection to Pokolistan, how very convenient, and we montage our way to the castle. Yes, the backwards-ass third world country has a castle. And an airport. And electricity. And high-tech modern APCs with a well-equipped military escort vanguarded by knights in power armor with lasers and jetpacks. Oh, go fuck yourself, backwards-ass country, my ass! Why the hell do they need the US's protection at all, and why are they giving up their oil that they clearly fucking use? They have cars and every other modern amenity. We're 5 minutes in and you've undone every premise you've set up. None of this should be happening by the show's own logic. They get to the castle and literally everybody makes an absolute fool out of the battle-hardened military commander of the squad, including the princess's head of security, who thought it would be hilarious to pretend to execute the military liaison to the country they're begging for help from. Because everything is a fucking joke to James Gunn, especially his own characters he wants you to care about. This is the guy we expect to treat Superman and Batman with respect? Don't get your hopes up, guys. They have dinner, and then I have to keep asking stupid questions, like, if these guys are not human, why do they need to eat? Phosphorus, from what I have looked up, doesn't need to. His organs are either gone or nuclear-powered. The bride is supposedly dead, but all of her bodily functions seem intact. She breathes, speaks, eats, drinks, and if she does those two things, she almost certainly goes to the bathroom. I'm seeing nothing besides her appearance that would lead me to believe any legal body would not simply classify her as human. And G.I. Robot runs on diesel, apparently? Pretty dumb for a frontline robot meant to go on covert military ops, but okay. We waste time in the courtyard with G.I. doing his best to wear out that Nazi joke. Weasel is gearing up for a retcon by being a cute, playful man-doggo. And Rick flirting with the princess who says her country views progress as corrupt. I might agree with that, or I might not, because you didn't actually say anything. Be more vague so nobody knows what the hell you mean. That's good writing. Here's a question that needs answering. Is Phosphorus on fire or not? Can he control how hot or radioactive he is? Because sometimes he can touch normal stuff without burning it, and other times he says he can't. More on that later, I hope. Nina plays pathetic little sister to the bride while she leaves to do a thing at Castle Frankenstein, which is now in this made-up country instead of Germany, where it actually is. Phosphorus sneaks into Rick's room to get the phone that controls their chips, which he left in a fucking drawer instead of just keeping on him at all times. Phosphorus doesn't immediately smash it the minute he finds it so that Rick can catch him and they can have a big fight that Rick should definitely lose and die from. I mean, Rick punches him and is immediately burned, and we see a similar result later when someone else attacks him. So how do his clothes not just burn off? Shouldn't he be naked or have a special containment suit like Nina? He also recovers from a broken neck. Fucking hell, so can he not die? Then Rick is fucked. He's nuclear and super strong and he can't die, you're fucked. But then Rick gets the phone back and spooky Skellington gets scared of a small electrical shock from a chip that shouldn't even fucking work. Ugh. I like Dr. Phosphorus a lot. He's a cool character, but he shouldn't be in the show. That phone should short out from the radiation the minute it's within 5 feet of him. There's no way that they could control or contain him out of his cell, and he's way too fucking OP. The bride and Nina go to the castle, and a gypsy woman across the street sees them and calls her benefactor, Frankenstein, to tell him the bride has come home. And despite it seeming like he's been living it up on a yacht full of sexy bikini girls, he cries at the knowledge that he has found her at last. Oh boy, what did they do to you, Frank? And there you have it, episode 1 of Creature Commandos. It's not great. I only watched it because it was supposed to be the first entry in the DCU ahead of Superman, and I only read the comic after that because of how brain-dead and nonsensical the show is. Once again, a big mainstream adaptation of an obscure, niche comic book that changes everything about it and fills it with juvenile humor and pop music to trick the normie portion of the audience into thinking it's brilliant.
Why is that good? You might as well ask, why is the tree good? Why is the sunset good? Why are boobs good?
Episode 2 opens in 1831 in Castle Frankenstein, where Dr. Victor Frankenstein is preparing to create a wife for his first creation, now called Eric. When Victor expresses doubts about repeating the process, Eric immediately becomes violently angry at the concept of being denied a mate when Victor already has his own, and so does everybody else. Okay, so I think we can already see where we're going with Frankenstein, and it's not pretty, but we'll wait till we get there. Alana continues to try to fuck this geriatric G.I. Joe without his consent, and while doing so points out exactly why a team of literal monsters being forced into service without their consent and who want to kill their commanding officer make a terrible team of bodyguards. But she decides to keep them on anyway so she can rob that grave nice and hard. The bride and Nina continue to search the castle so that we have an excuse for flashbacks about her backstory. Because James Gunn doesn't know how to tell us about characters through their actions, we have to have everything laid out for us every time. We see the bride brought to life, and Eric immediately tries to woo her with flowers he picked from the garden like a giant child. Victor is the first face she sees, and like a parental figure, she bonds to him on sight while being horrified by Eric. Eric, like the retarded child he is, does not understand, and is upset by not having his affections instantly returned the minute the bride comes to life. So, is Eric smart or not? He speaks eloquently, but his emotional maturity and temperament are that of a spoiled 4-year-old. The bride and Nina have a conversation about who's human and who's not, and I know James thinks he's being clever by blurring the line, and I'm almost certainly going to get replies saying I'm an idiot for not understanding that that's the entire point of the show. I get it, it's just not that deep, and James does nothing to explore the topic in depth. On top of that, it's a question that needs a definitive answer logistically for any of this show to take place at all, but we never get one. It's left ambiguous throughout. The bride reveals this is all for a necklace, and then we get another fucking flashback explaining the necklace's significance. Victor showed it to her when she had baby brain and she thought it was pretty. That's it. The real purpose of this flashback is to show us Victor acting as both her father and teacher as he attempts to educate the bride while she is still in this childlike state of new life, and to show Eric's increasing frustration at the bride not already being exactly what he needs her to be. A sex object. One of the sons of Themyscira is outside surveilling the castle and tells Cersei that 2 of the squad are there. And this is all because the bride happened to be from the same country she happened to be forced to go on a secret mission to, and it just so happened that there was an item of personal significance in the castle that just so happened to be in the same fucking city as the princess's castle. Contrivance is an understatement. This is a fucking stupid side plot that only exists to facilitate the bride's backstory flashbacks because James couldn't find a better way to tell us all this information. Then we get a really drawn-out joke scene of Phosphorus delaying the mission so Rick can fuck the princess. Hilarious. Yet another flashback shows us that James Gunn doesn't give a shit about that comic you like and thinks he's a better writer than the people whose work he is adapting, like Grant fucking Morrison. He has completely ruined Frankenstein for this show. Eric is now a sad, desperate, psychotic, incel, rapist stalker who thinks he owns the bride and is entitled to her affection. Not the heroic sword of justice and vengeance that saves the world on a regular basis from the comics. I wasn't a big fan of Frankenstein or anything before starting this project, but now that I've read the comics, I imagine anyone who was a fan fucking hates this show for what it did to this character. We then see Victor give the bride the necklace as a gift, and she falls head over heels in love because he gave her jewelry. Pfft, women. Then Cersei appears and decides to fuck up the 2 weakest members of the team while they're isolated from the rest, which is smart. She doesn't, though, because she decides to blast magic at and around them instead of turning them into stone, or making the house shrink till it crushes them, or lighting the whole thing on fire, or any one of an infinite number of other things she could do with her incredibly overpowered magic. I want to stress this. Cersei is one of the most powerful sorceresses in the DC universe. In fact, in some iterations, she is considered a goddess. She could easily annihilate the Bride and Nina, but no. She shoots easily dodgeable projectiles at them instead of warping matter and reality to her will, which she can do. Rick and the others finally move their asses and head for the castle. The Sons arrive to provide backup that Cersei really doesn't need because she's OP. And we see the start of a pattern that will begin to emerge in the next episode that was set up accidentally by Amanda Waller's opening line from episode 1.
What a bunch of clowns.
Dangerous clowns.
The Sons are simultaneously super dangerous and or super incompetent depending on what the show needs them to be in the moment. They're either a pathetic joke worthy of mockery or an extremely deadly squad of armed killers who pose a serious threat. They can't be both, but the show insists that they are. It's very confusing. The Bride's power level could also use some clarification. She is super strong. Strong enough to rip the door off an iron stove, but she's just a Frankenstein monster. A patchwork of corpse parts brought to life by electricity. They should be stronger than several men or so, but I don't know if that extends to launching a man out of a building through the air. Or throwing a truck. Or flying? Seriously, is she fucking flying right now? The fact that the Bride can hold her own in a fight against somebody as powerful as Cersei is already ridiculous, but she seems to be almost as powerful as Wonder Woman. We are then treated to interspersed flashbacks of Victor and the Bride turning Eric into Frankenstein right in front of him. In my opinion, this is also the final straw in the is the Bride human argument. If you can eat, drink, sleep, fuck, and bleed, you are definitely not dead and definitely qualify as human. The Bride should not be on this team. Which then begs the question of how she got here in the first place. Where, when, why, and how was she arrested, and how did they not deem her to qualify as human? We'll see later that another member of the squad did get a trial and was in the end classified as human, and you'll never guess who it is because they are the least likely candidate. But back to the Bride, we never get an answer. We get a shitload of flashbacks, but not one regards the most important thing about her, which is why she's here. Something we get for literally every other member of the squad but her. Then Cersei remembers to turn her powers on and wins. Balloon arms. She gave you balloon arms, which means she could have given you an entire balloon body and popped you. Cersei can transform and transfigure matter at will. She wins, always, no matter what, forever. Show over. Nope. Instead of finishing it, she kicks the shit out of the Bride until she bleeds, very human of her, and throws her off the roof. Then Nina's dumbass gets her fishbowl broken by the Sons and they lose. Then we get another goddamn motherfucking flashback of the Bride finding Eric after he killed Victor out of jealousy and the Bride tries to kill him back and accidentally burns the castle down. Also, her necklace, the thing that they were here for in the first place and the cause of all this drama, falls off of the Bride for literally no reason. What the fuck? If that didn't happen, this whole fucking episode doesn't happen. How the hell did you write that way? It literally looks like they had to add that last minute because James Gunn forgot to justify the whole fucking episode. She kicks Eric into the flames, which don't kill him somehow, even though that's Frankenstein's #1 weakness, then she runs out of the castle crying. Then we get another dumb as fuck montage of Eric stalking the Bride for the next 200 years because James Gunn hates you if you're a Frankenstein fan. It also shows the Bride living a completely normal human life out in the open for 2 centuries, which tells us that Frankenstein's creations really are, for all intents and purposes, human, outside of their appearance, which means Eric could have easily found a mate anywhere, and didn't actually need Victor to make him a bride at all, thus invalidating not just this episode, but the Bride's entire reason for being in the show. Well done, James, you fucking idiot. Also, small but important detail, the Bride shoots Eric in the chest. He bleeds, and it temporarily takes him down, just for future reference. And that's the end of the episode. Thanks, James. I hate it.
Go. Fuck. Yourself.
Episode 3 picks up where we left off with the squad arriving at Castle Frankenstein to save Nina and the Bride from Cersei. G.I. Robot then suddenly becomes the focus character, and we begin to get James' typical series of heavy-handed flashbacks to make you care about a character he hasn't developed right before he kills him off. Oops, spoilers. Right off the bat, we see a dip in quality in regards to the execution of this flashback technique. For the Bride, the flashbacks were prompted as unpleasant memories she was re-experiencing by being back in her new home. the place she was born and where she suffered the first major tragedy of her new life, the loss of someone she loved. For GI, the flashbacks are completely random and have nothing to do with the situation at hand. Also, how does a robot have flashbacks? He doesn't have emotions, and his memory is literal data stored in a file in his CPU. It's not a collection of thoughts and feelings like a human being has. How does a computer reminisce or have PTSD? I know this will be an unpopular opinion, especially if you're in the everything is subjective, emotion over logic crowd, but I don't feel anything for robots. I don't buy the concept of a sentient AI because I believe that is antithetical to the definition of sentience. It's called artificial intelligence for a reason. Computer programs are not alive. They are created by us from a collection of data points we've assembled to give them the appearance of human intelligence. Our first flashback is of GI serving on a mission with Sergeant Rock and Easy Company, which is a nice little throwback. The squad stumble into a German ambush, and when things seem to be going south, GI steps in and handily dispatches the enemy soldiers because he seems to have activated the infinite ammo cheat. We see GI's targeting program accurately identify the German soldiers as Nazis, which creates an important question about how his programming actually works. From what we've seen over how obsessively and single-mindedly he talks about it, his actual program directive is to hunt down and kill Nazis. Not just enemy soldiers, specifically Nazis. First of all, what a broad and vague and stupid way to program a killer robot. You'd think the smart thing would be to design him to follow the orders of whoever his commanding officer or NCO is. But no, he just kills Nazis. So now I have to ask an obtuse question that seemingly no fans of this show have the intellectual capacity to comprehend without getting emotional. What is a Nazi? That is a loaded word these days, and it makes discussing politics or ideology very difficult because it is purposely used to incite an emotional reaction and to get you to stop thinking about specific political ideological values and simply associate anyone who you view as being a bad person with what is considered by many people all over the world to be the worst kind of person in history, a Nazi. But if we're going to be objective, the base definition of a Nazi is a person who is/was a member of the National Socialist Workers' Party of Germany, a specific political party that existed in Germany in the early 20th century, and famously the party of notorious dictator and genocidal maniac Adolf Hitler. Yes, today it is almost never used in that context. Instead, it is used to describe anyone with sympathies towards fascism, white supremacy, anti-Semitism, and totalitarianism. But if we're being honest with ourselves and being specific, I think we all know that the KKK is not the same thing as the Nazi Party. And whatever political party you belong to in America today, and no matter how much you hate the other side, I think we all know that while we may disagree with the opposing faction, they are not literally Hitler. So moving forward, I am not going to be entertaining modern American political biases in my definition of the word Nazi. I'm going to refer specifically to members of the Nazi Party, because that is the context that whoever designed GI Robot in the 1940s would have had for the word when they were programming him. And going by that definition, we already have a problem. GI Robot accurately identifies all of the German soldiers attacking them as Nazis. His programming confirms it. However, and again, I know not everyone will agree with this, not every soldier in the German army in World War II was a member of the Nazi Party. Many of them were just conscripted soldiers fighting a war for their country. That does not excuse the atrocities committed by German soldiers in that period, it's just a fact. A fact that on its own is more than enough motivation for GI Robot to want to eliminate them. They are enemy combatants in a war who are trying to kill him and his squad. He has every right to respond in kind with deadly force and protect his fellow soldiers. It doesn't matter whether or not they are members of the party or true believers in Hitler's vision, they still need to be taken out. So, to reiterate again, this is a really silly and inefficient directive to give your war robot. So why is it written this way? I don't want to ascribe political motivation to James Gunn because I don't actually know what he thinks about politics, but I think we can get a pretty good idea based on how he uses this premise later on. Back in the present, the Commandos move in and find the bride tied up in the lobby and Nina trapped upstairs in the bathtub. Flag works out that leaving these two alive here was a diversion while Cersei and the Sons make their move on Ilana's castle. And we immediately head back into flashback land where post-World War II GI Robot is making a television appearance to show off the engineering marvel that he is. While he's on stage, he searches the crowd for more Nazis, reinforcing that his programming is single-minded and persistent. Dr. Will Magnus is in the crowd with GI's commanding officer who is offering to let Will have GI to further his study of robotics and AI systems. In Will's lab, they have a conversation where GI makes it explicit that he does not have wants or dreams or personal preferences, but that it is his sole directive to kill Nazis, which disappoints Will, who was hoping he had a form of sentience. But this does clear things up for us that GI's programming really is that fucking stupid and that he is in no way sentient. He simply mimics human mannerisms to fit in better with his squad. At the castle, Ilana wakes up to one of her amethyst knights escorting her out of her room as the castle is under attack by the sons of Themyscira. The knight is then immediately obliterated from the waist up by an RPG. Oh, Jesus Christ. I was annoyed before when I found out that the backwards-ass third-world nation of Pekolistan had a royal guard with the equivalent of Iron Man suits. But now we find out that the fancy robot knight armor with jetpacks and lasers is still completely vulnerable to conventional military weapons like a rocket-propelled grenade. Or at least I think it is. It's certainly drawn like an RPG, except it works nothing like one. It tears the knight's armored torso from his body, but doesn't explode, because if it did, Ilana would be dead. But much like other grenade launchers, RPGs don't explode unless they reach a certain velocity, and if they don't explode, while they would still hurt like a bitch to get hit with, they don't have enough propulsion to rip a man's torso off without the explosive ordnance detonating. So, DC continues to not understand military weapons. Go figure. The Suns continue to be an anomaly as they handily fight off the completely inconsistently portrayed Amethyst Knights, proving that they are in fact a deadly and capable fighting force despite the show trying to portray them as a complete joke. Which is it? Are they dangerous, or are they clowns?
Dangerous clowns.
Oh. Anyway, the Knights continue to fight the Suns in the courtyard, and it seems like their lasers are non-lethal? Hard to tell because the action in this show is about as clear as mud as far as how anything works or what the stakes are. But then the Commandos arrive to save the day. By shooting them with normal guns. What the fuck is even the point of the Knights if that's how easy it is to kill these losers? We then see a son of Themyscira with a hat that has the team acronym on it. S of T, which spells soft. Nice one, James. Except you made the people you're trying to make fun of harder and stronger than the Russian super knights in Iron Man armor, so the joke doesn't really land, does it? And did they change the hat color from red to blue? Oh, so they were supposed to be MAGA, but then you got fucking scared because you knew you were making fun of more than half the country once the election was over. How brave of you. Then Dr. Phosphorus shows us just how OP he is once more by vaporizing bullets before they hit him, punching a hole through your crazy Uncle Cletus's torso, and turning him into a human kebab. Seriously though, Phosphorus is insanely powerful, he should never lose a fight, and he doesn't even need the rest of the team's help. He could take out this entire army all by himself. GI then begins another extended flashback sequence in the middle of a battle without getting blown up. We see a war memorabilia collector named Sam purchase GI from a pawn shop and bring him home to his army of cats. What is the male equivalent to a cat lady? Something, something, surrounded by pussy, but can't get any? Haha, got him. We then see Sam taking GI to some sort of meeting for people who are all interested in a better country. You mean people who want to make America as prosperous as it was previously? Is that what you mean, James? Say it, you coward!
Say it!
Anyway, they get there and we see GI noticing some very specific tattoos and outfits, and they're Nazis.
Oh boy. Nazis.
Let me clarify. This group of exclusively white American men with swastikas everywhere who are clearly supposed to be a white supremacist group of neo-Nazis, which aren't really Nazis at all by definition, call themselves the Hub City National Socialist Club.
What? What the fuck?
For any of you who live in the American South and may have actually encountered members of the KKK or any other equivalent white supremacist organization, do they seem like the kind of guys who would ever identify themselves as socialists? Call me crazy, but redneck American racists who despise far-left Marxist communists and find kinship with the Nazi Party usually don't feel that way because of the socialist economic policies Hitler implemented. It's usually just the racist white nationalism. In fact, if they had done the same swastika reveal and said the Hub City White Nationalist Club, I don't think I'd have any problem with this reveal. But National Socialists? I get the feeling they're only called that so we make no mistake in identifying these guys as literal Nazis, so that we know GI Robot will also definitely identify them as literal Nazis. How on the nose. And now this presents another problem. GI Robot, since his first line of dialogue, has not shut up for one fucking second about killing Nazis. He used to make the late-night talk show circuit. We saw him on live TV accusing the entire audience of being secret Nazis. Sam purposely brought a Nazi-hunting robot to a Nazi rally, not thinking this could possibly end badly? Even if Sam didn't do his research before buying GI, he's had him for a decent enough length of time, enough for the seasons to change and to realize that putting winter clothes on him keeps his joints from rusting in the cold weather. Are you telling me GI didn't mention wanting to kill Nazis for weeks or months on end? Or is Sam so fucking stupid that he doesn't think the Hub City National Socialist Club or their giant swastika banner has anything to do with Nazis?
Hans, are we the baddies?
And it's pop music montage time because James Gunn missed his calling as a music video director where his shitty writing wouldn't matter. GI asks Flag if the Sons are Nazis, and Flag says yes, and GI's programming just accepts that, even though there's zero evidence to indicate that the Sons hold anything even close to resembling Nazi ideology. What a bullshit robot. We intersperse scenes of GI slaughtering the Sons in the present day and the white supremacists in the past to a catchy song, so you will think that this is creative or makes any sense. We also see some improvements given to GI by Will Magnus. We also get more flashes of the aftermath of the massacre at the church that give context to GI's arrest and completely break the premise of the show into a million pieces. GI was arrested for murdering the Hub City Nazis in cold blood, which, despite how much you might think they deserved it, was still murder. They may have been racist assholes, but as far as we know, they hadn't committed any crimes. Now you may ask yourself, why would the police bother arresting a robot instead of just destroying or dismantling it? Get a load of this.
This man, and he does meet the state's current definition of man, willfully murdered 32 human beings in cold blood.
On the count of second-degree murder, we find the defendant guilty.
Are you fucking kidding me? What were we told at the beginning of this show?
By using these prisoners, I think we can arguably circumvent our new restrictions.
Arguably? How?
Congress said we can't use human prisoners. These assholes aren't human.
The only two members of the team I could honestly believe that would apply to were Weasel and GI Robot, because he's literally not human. He's a fucking robot. The one member of the team who is not only not human, but not even alive. He's not organic. He's a machine. The farthest thing from human you could possibly be. And yet, somehow, in a court of law, the judge not only ruled him guilty of murder, but legally a man as well. Because machines can't stand trial for murder. You can't convict a toaster, but a human man you can. My working theory before this was that the members of the squad were all black-bagged in the dead of night and taken into Argus off the books. No trial, no due process. But as we'll find out for each member of the team except for the bride, every single one of them was arrested, stood trial, and sentenced to incarceration at Bel Rev within the confines of the legal system. If none of them are human, why the hell would you give them a trial? A trial that would be publicized and gain them sympathy from the public because of how much they are not being treated like human beings except to punish them. Human punishments means human rights, which was the whole premise of Amanda using these guys as operatives. They don't qualify as humans, so we can do whatever we want with them. But if they got a trial, they get legal protected status as human beings in the eyes of the law. This is a contradiction you cannot work your way out of. The entire premise of the show has been invalidated by this one stupid fucking flashback about a sad robot. This is what happens when you choose emotional appeal and style over logical writing and substance. You get a shallow music video of a silly robot murdering innocent people, and then you expect the audience to feel bad for him. Fuck me. Also, wait, is animal, vegetable, mineral man legally a man? Or an animal? Or a vegetable? Or a mineral? Are his rights granted by percentage? Is he 1/4 human? Does he count as 25% of a person? Damn, even slaves counted more towards the vote than him. Anyway, the fucking can opener gets blown up. Feel bad for him. Then Cersei finally goes straight for the princess's bedroom, and I don't understand why she couldn't have done that this entire time. In fact, it's about time we address this now that all the Sons are dead because they were easily dispatched by one robot with regular guns. Why the fuck did Cersei ever need these assholes in the first place? At least as far as we've seen in the show so far, this version of Cersei can fly, teleport, vaporize people with magic blasts, transform matter at will, and as we'll see in the next episode, get into your head and give you visions of dubious authenticity. Why did she need an army of losers to invade Pakolistan? If she can transform matter, that means she can transform herself. She could look like whoever she wants. Say, one of Ilana's Amethyst Knight bodyguards and get into the castle and kill her no problem. The Knights got their asses kicked by regular men with guns. A sorceress of her power would have no problem wiping out the entire Pakolistani army. Or, she could have just teleported into the princess's bedroom and killed her while she was sleeping. Either of these options would have been quicker and easier than wasting time with a loud army of dickheads who get killed so easily they were never worth the trouble. It also would have drawn less attention. If she had gone alone, neither the Pokolistani or American governments would have known Ilana was in danger before Cersei had already killed her. This whole fucking show is so goddamn stupid from the ground up. None of this needed to happen. The Sons finally get into Ilana's room, but not before she grabs her multi-shot, single-barreled semi-auto musket pistol. Then Cersei shows up and shoots around her and not at her, just like she did with the bride, and wastes time throwing her around so that the hero of the show can intervene. Weasel! Fucking Weasel! He fucking tackles her out of the window and starts biting and ripping the shit out of her, and for some fucking reason she doesn't turn him into soap with a flick of her fucking finger! Weasel single-handedly beats one of Wonder Woman's most powerful arch-enemies in episode 3 out of 7 of the very first project in this new DCU. What a fucking joke! Also, this level of violence from Weasel is going to be very fucking confusing when we get to the next episode. And also, phosphorus burning her face doesn't just melt right through her like it does for pretty much everybody else. Then G.I. dies, and nobody is sad about it except Nina, who somehow cries underwater. And now I have another stupid question. How has she been talking underwater this whole time? Shouldn't it just all sound like... Cersei decides now that she's lost and gotten her shit chewed up and burnt that this would be a good time to tell everybody that she had good reasons for trying to kill the princess, and now that she's failed, the world is going to end. Wow, what a cliffhanger. And there goes episode 3, which on my first watch through was my favorite episode because I found G.I. Robot fairly entertaining, but now it might actually be the worst episode of the entire show because it fundamentally destroys all of the logic that the show based its entire premise on. I've never seen a writer so blatantly shoot themselves in the foot and undo all the work they set up previously. I could stop right here and now to say the show is irredeemably stupid, but you all know what a glutton for punishment I am. Episode 4 begins with gross, cross-generational flirtation between two vapid characters we don't care about, but Ilana brings up a good point. Why not just kill Cersei? This entire operation is illegal and off the books, and Cersei definitely doesn't have any citizenship or protection under any nation, not even Themyscira. Amanda loves breaking the law and violating people's rights. What reason do they have for keeping her alive? To find out why she was after Ilana? Why can't that interrogation happen right here in Pokolistan? Why do they need to bring her back to the States to get this information? Wouldn't it be cheaper for Amanda to fly out there to be part of the interrogation? Rick gives Princess Peach the cold shoulder and fucks off. What actually was the point of this scene? It could be cut entirely. In fact, why didn't I cut it? Why am I even talking about this? What am I doing here? What am I doing with my life? Oh no. I'm just as bad as James Gunn! James Gunn? Guys, look! James Gunn wrote this! Holy shit, James Gunn! Shit, it's James fucking Gunn! Oh my fuck! Hey guys, did you know James Gunn wrote this? It's pretty cool. Next, we see John Economos being berated by Weasel's lawyer. Yep, the non-human prisoner has a lawyer. Pretty sure only humans get those. She also knows about Amanda Waller's public scandal about using human prisoners on missions and threatens to cause more trouble for Amanda if she doesn't get access to her client, who she then witnesses coming off a plane from another illegal secret mission. Well, fuck. That's it. The show should be over. We started with the premise that these prisoners could only be used because they're not human, which we've already poked several holes in that theory, so we know that isn't true. So now, the only reason this operation is staying afloat is because nobody knows she's still using prisoners who have been granted human rights like trials and lawyers in due process. But now, one of the lawyers representing one of the prisoners she is illegally using as an operative is aware that she just used him on a mission again after being publicly ordered by Congress not to do so. This scene is a joke intended to get a laugh from you because our characters got caught doing something that they're not supposed to be doing under threat of life in prison. But it's not funny, because the fact that they're not supposed to be doing this means that now that somebody knows they're doing this, somebody should stop them from doing this. This is called cause and effect. It's something good writers pay attention to. Bad writers lampshade their inability to account for it and call it comedy. Frankenstein is continuing to cuck himself by watching the bride talking to Rick from an unauthorized helicopter hovering in military airspace above a government black site prison. They should be shot down immediately, but Eric fixes that himself by freaking out on the pilots he hired to bring him here and crashing the bird himself. The lawyer proves she's a hypocrite immediately by demanding Weasel be treated as human while tossing him dog treats like an animal. The lawyer brings up Weasel's trial. Yes, the Weasel Man got a trial and was convicted of killing 8 children. So she is representing him because she believes the conviction to be false, which turns out to be true somehow, but regardless, it enforces the point that Weasel, much like G.I. Robot, was given due process as an adult human man in the eyes of the law and was convicted and sentenced for child murder. He should not be here. Rick should not have been legally able to put him on that plane at all, and this lawyer should be going straight to the news to publicly expose Amanda Waller for the 4th time for abusing human rights and circumventing international law. We finally get to Cersei's interrogation, and Amanda Waller continues to get dumber and dumber with each appearance. She makes with the jokes for a second, and then finally gets to the important question. Why did Cersei try to kill the princess? Cersei says it was to save the world, Amanda doesn't believe her, and Cersei says she can show her a vision of the future to confirm it. Okay, very interesting if true, but Flag correctly tells Amanda not to take the risk. We get a scene of the lawyer wasting her time with Weasel so that we can trigger some patented gun flashbacks that make no sense. A bunch of children are hanging out at the school playground unsupervised and find this horrifying rat man skulking in the bushes with his bulging murder eyes and somehow think he's adorable instead of scary and disgusting like he was clearly designed to be. Children are dumb, so I don't entirely blame them, but I do find it hard to believe they wouldn't just run away screaming. Amanda immediately goes into the cell with the dangerous psychic witch all by herself with no protection, and then we get the biggest bullshit scene in the entire show, except the show insists it's all legitimate. Cersei's vision is fucking impossible, and there's no way it's true, but it ends up being true anyway. First off, Bakolistan is supposed to be a poor, backwards, third world country. How do they have such a massive high-tech army with enough bombs and amethyst knights to start World War III? We see Gorilla Grodd behind her in this montage, but that's just bait for something in the future that we can't confirm yet, and we may never actually find out because of what happens to Alana at the end of this show. And we don't even know if this show will get a second season, or if any of these plot points will ever come up in future DCU projects. You can't just say it will make sense later. It doesn't make sense now, and that's a problem right now with this show, not some hypothetical future show. Anyway, as it stands right now, she does not have the power to overthrow the United States government, and she definitely doesn't have the power to take down the entire Justice League. Look at this fucking bullshit. Who do we have here? James Gunn's retards, Vigilante, Judo Master, and Peacemaker. Starfire. Booster Gold? Maybe? Supergirl? Maybe Captain Atom. Robin, Hawkgirl, Mr. Terrific, and the big 3 themselves. Wonder Woman, Batman, and fucking Superman. Fuck off. There is no fucking way this psycho Disney princess, no matter how many supervillain friends she has, is killing the most powerful heroes in the DC universe. She needed protection from Cersei, a powerful villain, yes, but one Diana has beaten on her own numerous times, and so have the Justice League. And she needed protection from the fucking Suicide Squad of all people, who, by the way, would have no problem taking her out themselves. This scenario is completely impossible, which would lead me to immediately believe, especially if I were someone who is supposed to be intelligent like Amanda Waller, that this vision is absolute horse shit. But we'll see how she deals with that in a bit. First, we have to talk about the abysmal world building of this brand new DCU. Is Themyscira confirmed fact or not? The news report in episode 1 wasn't sure. They said possibly real or possibly mythical. But now, Rick doesn't know if Themyscira is fact, but John says they do, and it is, but it still seems like nobody knows much about it. But apparently, with all this uncertainty surrounding the nature of the island's existence, there's a fucking college professor here who exclusively studies the Amazons and their culture. How? Has she been to the island? Do they allow female archaeologists and anthropologists and historians and whatnot to go to the island to learn more about them? And if so, why the hell is there any doubt about whether it's real? What is the reality of this world? What's real and what's not? What does the general public know or think about Wonder Woman or superheroes in general? Maybe this would all be important shit to talk about in a fucking Wonder Woman show. Why the hell are we doing this in fucking Creature Commandos? What the hell are we even doing here?
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
The professor tells us that 10 years ago, Cersei warned the Amazons of a flood and she ended up being correct.
A major tsunami did indeed hit within an hour of what Cersei predicted. Those who took refuge survived. Those who did not, did not. Since then, her talents have fallen more often on the less altruistic side.
And why do you think what she just did to me isn't on the less altruistic side?
She's clairvoyant. She's not able to imagine futures. I don't see how what she showed you could be anything other than genuine.
Oh, come on.
How the fuck does she know this? Did Cersei tell her? Has McPherson been to Themyscira? Did Cersei tell the news what her fucking plans were? How do we have any of this information? Also, what the fuck do you mean she isn't able to imagine futures? Everyone can imagine the future. It's literally the only option when discussing the future. What the fuck? And what the fuck does this normal-ass human professor know about magic or telepathic vision sharing? How could she know any of this? I do not understand who this woman is or how she is a credible source of information on magic visions at all. And Amanda should not trust a word out of hers or Cersei's mouths as a highly decorated intelligence operative. Psychic visions from a criminal sorceress in federal custody are completely unreliable as a source of intelligence, and she has every reason to lie to you. But no, Amanda is a retard, and immediately orders the assassination of a foreign dignitary on complete hearsay, which Flag points out and confirms for us that no outsider has ever set foot on the island.
A place where no outsider has ever set foot because anyone who tries is killed.
What the fuck does this dyke professor study? Tumblr fanfic about a magical island full of lesbians? Where's the proof? Flag leaves after refusing Amanda's orders, and she decides to replace him with the bride. We see her and Phosphorus in the lunchroom, and Nina getting bullied by... Who the fuck is this? Kong Gorilla. Never heard of him, but I looked him up. Seems like he's a superhero. Why is he in prison? Oh, never mind. He's dead. I guess there's no consequences for killing another non-human inmate. Sorry, Kong Gorilla fans, all 4 of you. Also, I don't know who this bat vampire girl is, but if she's a gender-swapped Velcoro, I'm gonna fucking lose it. The bride gets the order to return to Pakolistan to kill the princess. Flag runs home to do nothing, I guess, but apparently he didn't get the princess's number before he left because he calls the castle and gets stonewalled by the guard who answers. Then, suddenly, Cookenstein shows up to murder his ass for love. Eric should be able to kill him in one punch, but Flag has main character plot armor, so he's fine. Also, Eric is suddenly bulletproof now. Remember that montage where he wasn't? Well, fuck you for noticing. Rick stops the fight, and Eric continues to embarrass himself and us.
Oh, the bride. Who else would I be talking about, you dilfy piece of shit? Listen to me.
What the hell have they done to Frankenstein? Why do they do this to stoic characters who use old-world vernacular and decorum? Why do they make them speak like Zoomer fuckboy pieces of shit who've never opened a dictionary and can only relate to other people by referencing films they've watched?
No, not with this great love at stake. Okay. The 2 of you, like Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet in Titanic. Have you seen that movie? Yeah. Oh, not many people have.
Fuck Titanic. Anyway, they have a talk and Eric agrees to help Rick save the princess because he's a lovesick moron. I need a drink. On the plane, we see Weasel having a nightmare about his terrible retcon. How convenient. In fact, let's play a game with this flashback where I take a drink every time I say the word convenient or conveniently. The children are playing fetch with this horrible monstrosity and accidentally throw their ball into the abandoned school. I say abandoned, I'm pretty sure it's their actual school and it's just closed, but the doors are unlocked for some reason. How convenient! Some creepy old man happens to be walking by and sees the children clearly having a good time with the giant mongoose and decides he needs to do something about it. How convenient! The teacher's desk is also unlocked and has their graded papers and a bottle of booze in it, unprotected. How convenient! The kids take the booze and throw their ball, and it happens to go downstairs into the dangerous boiler room. How fucking convenient! The old man runs back to his cabin in the woods, which is conveniently close to the school, how fucking creepy, and grabs a shotgun while calling the police to tell them there's a monster taking the children into the school. The kids conveniently find some matches to play with their alcohol and paper balls, and conveniently land the alcohol and merches in the fire and paper in the same place all at once. How convenient to Vivint. The old man shows up right when Weasel is on top of the children, looking conveniently spoopy, and decides to shoot his shotgun right at the conveniently placed fuel tank that conveniently pours more fuel on the fire. It makes the whole school go kapow, and everyone dies. How convenient. Whew. Okay, I did a time jump and sobered up. Where was I? Oh yes, questions. Questions abound. Why are the kids allowed to be here after school? Where are their parents? Who is this random old man who lives within 100 yards of the school? Why is the school unlocked? Why is the desk unlocked? What elementary school teacher is drinking during the day? Why was the basement unlocked? Why, and how did any of this shit happen? This is not just convenient. This is not just contrived. This is impossible. Just like it's impossible that anybody survived that explosion. But Weasel did, and so did this kid, because we need them to suffer more for our sympathy porn. Then the cops see Weasel looking ominous with a kid in his mouth and decide, he's got a kid! Let's shoot at the child! This takes place in a universe where all cops are trigger-happy morons and open fire first thing at every call no matter the circumstances. Guns solve everything, all the time! I say this to make it clear that that is not reflective of reality if there are any ACAB psychopaths watching this. Weasel tries to escape the burning school and gets met at the front entrance by our maniac cops who continue to shoot and injure him while he runs towards them, clearly trying to get the girl to safety. They keep shooting at the little girl till Weasel drops her. Then, they fucking hold him down and arrest him while they leave the little girl to burn to death. Fuck that innocent child. This monster needs to face justice. What the fuck am I even watching anymore? Holy crap. Man, you couldn't have laid it on any thicker there, James. Feel bad for Weasel. The show demands it. It doesn't earn it at all. It just tries to pander to the sensitive people out there who love cute animals, hate cops, and don't understand how anything in physical reality or probability works at all. This is how fucking dumb James Gunn thinks you are. Eat his slop and rejoice. Episode 5 opens with Professor McPherson teaching her class about Themyscira and acting like your typical college lesbian, obsessing over other lesbians. But we get more confusing dialogue about recently unearthed archaeological findings from Themyscira like statues and poetry that nobody in this class could possibly know about if nobody has ever set foot on the island like Rick said in the previous episode.
A place where no outsider has ever set foot because anyone who tries is killed.
Seriously, ignoring the twist this scene is trying to set up for later in the episode, I'm still stuck on how the hell there is a college professor who gets paid to study a culture on an isolated island that doesn't let in outsiders to study their culture. How can she possibly do this job? And we do get confirmation later in the episode that Professor McPherson is real, she's really a professor, and she does really study and teach a class on Amazonian culture. To me, this all comes off as an attempt by James to get in some world building without actually thinking about the specific details of how this piece of the world affects a whole bunch of other pieces. There's so many unanswered questions about the status of the Amazons in this world. Who all knows about Themyscira and how do they know it? Did Diana tell the world every single thing about her homeland despite the Amazons being wary of outsiders? We keep getting told that nobody is allowed to go there, so we know McPherson hasn't been there, so how does she conduct her research? Do the Amazons send their precious ancient artifacts in the mail to be studied by outsiders? Because that defeats the purpose of not allowing people on the island in the first place. Is everything she knows about the Amazons and their island from third-hand accounts from other people in the world who claim to have interacted with the Amazons or to have Amazonian artifacts or knowledge of their culture? Because without first-hand confirmation from the Amazons, anything anyone else says about the island could all be fake. Is that what James is actually trying to tell us here? That McPherson's work is all bullshit and that this college is a scam and that nothing she says is accurate? That would have been a clever twist, and fairly accurate to modern academia. But no, instead we get a completely different twist to invalidate this woman's credibility. It's almost like James took the words world building a little too literally. See, if the whole world is aware of Themyscira, that means I've built a world where it exists. I'm a professional writer. But it doesn't make any sense how you've built it. People simultaneously know everything and nothing about the island. It is both real and mythical. There's a field of study dedicated to learning more about it, even though the Amazons make sure there's nothing for anyone to learn about. This is one of the most contradictory plot points in the entire show, and it never gets answered. And it's all pointless anyway, because it only exists to cast doubt on McPherson's confirmation of Cersei's vision, which you didn't need any help with. The vision on its face was already dubious, and it's fucking retarded that Waller would have put any stock in anything Cersei showed her. Outside, Rick and Eric are observing McPherson's odd behavior while the entire student body is observing them. Seriously, they're just out in the quad looking into the classroom window. Very covert, General. Eric continues to be a dangerous, bloodthirsty moron for genuinely no reason. I mean it, and you'll see as we go on, he has no reason for killing most of the people he kills in this show. He's just dumb and crazy. And we know how bad writers like to use crazy as an excuse to justify mass murder. I'm looking at you, Riddler.
This is not how this was supposed to go!
We then cut to a goddamn motherfucking flashback that we've already fucking seen because that's how much James loves his goddamn flashbacks. We see Eric get burned by the bride again so we can see how he survived. Oh. Wait, no, we don't. Just kidding, we don't see that. We literally just replay a snippet of the flashback from episode 2. This show is now reusing its own footage to stay afloat. Holy fuck, tell me you ran out of ideas 3 episodes ago without telling me. And as further evidence of that, we repeat the fucking scene from episode 1 of the team arriving at the airport in Bakulistan, and Alexei drops this fucking gem on us.
For 100 years in isolation, we have no problems in Bakulistan. Then, we open communications with Americans, and within weeks, it's nothing but threat.
100 years in isolation, bull fucking shit. You have cars and telephone poles and laser jetpack mech armor. Stop trying to convince me they're a poor country.
Gretchen, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
Also, he specifically named a bunch of 90s and early 2000s references in the first fucking episode for a dumb fucking joke that James thought was so fucking clever but shouldn't have existed in the first place because it involved threatening to kill Rick, the guy here to fucking help you.
We are so much like Americans, yes? Loose! We pull pranks like Jamie Kennedy experiment. We do the Super Bowl shuffle. We like to say, "Wazza!" I have question for you, skeleton. Where's the beef? Clara Peller, one of the greats.
Enough, Alexei.
They have not been isolated. Why the fuck can't you remember your own fucking writing, James? You get paid money for this! Alexei is immediately suspicious at this new unnamed threat that requires the Commando's presence, and the bride does absolutely nothing to alleviate his concerns because she was a terrible choice for squad commander because she doesn't give a shit about any of this. I hear ya, girlfriend. Rick and Eric arrive at McPherson's, and we get a very stupid joke about cats on leashes so Eric can reference something from his past so we can have an excuse for more fucking flashbacks. Now we see how Eric survived the fire. Frankenstein's classic and most well-known weakness. He fucking didn't. He's dead and the show abruptly ends. Sorry, wishful thinking. No, he just survives being on fire somehow long enough for him to walk all the way outside the castle, up the hill, and into a lake which somehow also has a river flowing out of it that doesn't just drain the fucking lake, and he washes up on a bank right next to an old gypsy woman's house and gets found by her dog. How fucking convenient. I'm not drinking again for this one, I might fucking die. The gypsy woman is blind but feels Eric's fucked up face and probably smells his burnt and rotting corpse and doesn't decide to just leave him there because he's clearly fucking dead. Instead, she brings him in and attempts to heal his wounds and nurse him back to health. Now for more stupid questions. How does dead flesh preserved with formaldehyde heal? I know I've concluded that Eric and the bride are more or less human, but the show still portrays them as being made of dead flesh, so how does one heal burnt, rotting skin? Don't fucking know, and neither does the show. Eric is slowly nursed back to health and continues to be one of the most stupid and vile and cruel characters ever written, despite the show trying to trick you into thinking he might have a redemption arc. Spoiler alert, he doesn't.
You are blind?
Duh.
This world holds nothing of worth besides beauty. If I were blind, I would kill myself.
Oh, my.
The beauty of my bride. That is what keeps me going.
Neither Mary Shelley's Creature or Grant Morrison's variation of the same was ever portrayed as such an irredeemable piece of shit. Inside the house, Flagg discovers McPherson's body and concludes he was right about it all being a setup. But rather than calling Amanda to have her cancel the assassination mission, he calls the princess, the person he's been unsuccessful in reaching every other time he's tried to call her. But this time, by sheer stroke of luck, he reaches her in time to warn her so that the show can continue its pointless existence. Then McFakeson comes home, and there's actually a funny exchange between Flagg and Eric for once.
Hide! You think you're hidden right now?
Oh, come on, I don't give a shit.
I agree, Eric. Especially about your bullshit gay-ass fucking flashbacks. You know what? No! I'm not doing it! And I don't care! It literally doesn't add shit. The gypsy loves Eric and he's a fucking asshole. Moving on. Alexei gets a call warning him about the Commandos' intentions, so he decides to divert them till he can come up with a plan. Back at the house, McFakeson turns into Clayface. Apparently, someone hired him to murder McPherson and discredit her, specifically while Rick was investigating her, which nobody could have known would even happen or when. How fucking convenient. It would have been much smarter to just reveal that McPherson was a fraud the whole time. You didn't need to bring in another character just to have a cool fight and then kill him off. Spoiler alert. This next sequence is really poorly edited together so that it can intersperse two fight scenes at once to make it seem like both stories are coming to a head, but both stories are fucking stupid and never needed to happen, so I'm just gonna do one, then the other. Rick and Eric get caught by Clayface and they have a big fight. Clayface should kill Rick instantly, but doesn't. Instead, he slowly cripples him just enough so that he can survive the fight but be too injured to be in the rest of the show. He then tries to smother Eric, the supposedly dead guy who may not even need to breathe as far as Clayface knows, instead of tearing his stitched-together corpse body to shreds, which he could easily do. Then Eric does the one and only clever thing he'll do in the entire show. He grabs an exposed electrical wire and touches it to the bolts on his head to use his body as a conductor and fry Clayface till he explodes. Very nice. Except now we have to re-examine the point that I brought up in episode 1. Eric and the bride were brought to life by electricity, which led me to believe it would not be an effective weapon against them. That is now confirmed, which means when the bride got shocked by her control chip in the first episode, I was right about that making no sense. The chip should be useless on her. Flag and Amanda don't actually have control over the bride. I have been vindicated, this show was dumb as fuck from the jump. The other fight scene begins with Alexei driving the Commandos into a planned ambush where a full contingent of soldiers, 2 more APCs, a gunship, and 3 Amethyst Knights, yes, only 3, are there to meet them and stop the Commandos before they can kill the princess. Phosphorus punches Alexei's face off, and the soldiers open fire on the APC, which is now suddenly not bulletproof. The squad gets out and immediately scatters, and the Knights say to focus on the blue woman and the skeleton because they are the only threats. A, you're correct about the threat level, which is bad news when the enemy can tell that half your squad is useless. B, you're incorrect, because the bride is not blue. She's green. Nina is blue. The bride's bullets are standard issue hero bullets, which means that only her shots can get through Kevlar vests and helmets, even though those things are specifically designed to stop handgun rounds like hers. We also saw regular bullets go through Amethyst Knight armor before, but now the bride's super punches are having a hard time getting through. Fuck consistency! Then Dr. Phosphorus decides to throw more inconsistency on the pile because he fucking hates me. He gets naked, seemingly for no reason, but then we get one. He is about to get so hot and so radioactive that it melts 50 caliber bullets, a tank shell, and right through the fucking moving tank itself.
Oh my god!
Okay, first off, that was dope. But also fucking stupid because it proves to us once again that Phosphorus is a one-man army. He does not need the rest of the team at all. He could take on the entire Pokolistani army all by himself. Also, why did he remove his clothes before doing his super move? Was it so that they didn't get burnt? Because every other time he used his power to a huge degree, that wasn't a problem. Also, why would he fucking care? Nobody can see that he's naked. It doesn't fucking matter. Why not just give him a containment suit that can handle the radiation? I'll tell you. It's because his name is Dr. Phosphorus, and whoever designed his look for this show really wanted to put him in a lab coat. You know, because doctor. Fuck you. That's dumb. Give him clothes that won't burn. Oh, now the bride can rip through their armor. How fucking convenient. And now the night lasers are powerful enough to melt night armor and shoot down helicopters. Then how the fuck did they lose to the incels of Themyscira? How fucking hard is it to remain consistent with the power levels of everyone in your show? How can you expect to have any stakes at all to the action if nothing matters and anything can happen at any point? I'm serious. Apart from Phosphorus, I don't have any idea how strong anyone in this show is or what they're vulnerable to, and I don't fucking care because the people making the show don't fucking care. None of this matters, and the whole thing is stupid. Anyway, despite the bride and Phosphorus just destroying an entire fucking army, the normal civilian police arrive and they fucking run away in terror because that makes any fucking sense. Flag tells Eric to tell the bride the truth and then dies, but not really. He could have just called Amanda, but everyone in this show is retarded. Flashback! Eric leaves the gypsy to find the bride, but decides to kill her first for no reason other than to be a cruel prick. The end. Sergei and the princess have a conversation about the Commandos and the threat they pose. They have this conversation in complete privacy, so there's no need to lie about their intentions, and she says that the Commandos have been misled by their own government into trying to kill her, but that they have no choice because of how dangerous they are, and they must be hunted down and executed. Now, keep that in mind, because later on, these two are going to have a part to play in the conclusion of the show and the big reveal that is supposed to shock you. Right now, it seems very much like Cersei was lying and that she had Clayface pose as the professor to mislead Amanda into killing the princess for no good reason. As far as any reasonable person can tell, the princess does truly seem to be innocent.
So if you're from Africa, why are you white? Oh my god, Karen, you can't just ask people why they're white.
Why are you gay?
Episode 6 opens in Gotham City, with Hoburn Wash falling out of a van and quickly thrown back in by some goons, where we see Dutch! Just kidding, it's Rupert Thorne, but that voice will always bring me back to the Old West.
We are gonna find out what you need. I can't believe it! An O'Driscoll in my camp!
I ain't an O'Driscoll, mister! I hate that fella!
Oh, whatever you say, son!
We then cut to Dr. Phosphorus, the glowing skeleton man, hiding in garbage right next to a patrol of Amethyst Knights who don't notice the whole alleyway flooded with yellowish-green light. And again I ask, why the hell is he hiding? He has proven to us time and time again that he is basically immortal and indestructible. He could turn his powers up to 11, walk through the city while the army fires everything they have at him to no effect, and right through the castle, melting the foundations in the process and cause the whole thing to come crashing down, killing everyone inside, including the princess. But no! We need to pad out the runtime here and do our obligatory tragic flashback instead of just telling a straightforward and cohesive story. Then he hums the theme. Ain't he just so quirky and fun? That's why they hired Alan Tudyk, to get you to like this unrepentant villain right before they retcon his backstory to make you feel bad for him. Anywho... We then cut to Sergei and the princess discussing whether or not the Commandos are friends, and Ilana says that they are, but that they may have been misled by Cersei into assassinating her. This is going to present a major problem next episode. Sergei is either playing dumb for no reason or he actually is a giant fucking retard. The purpose this dialogue serves is to continue to lull the audience into thinking that the princess is innocent, but there will be a major contradiction around this idea due to information presented at the end of the final episode. I'll wait till we get there for that. For now, the princess makes the stupid decision of not going into their secure secret bunker because she refuses to hide. What is with DC and making female leaders arrogant and stupid in the face of an impending assassination threat? They did the same thing to Bella Real in the Batman and she got fucking shot immediately afterwards. God, I love watching that. This may be a trend moving forward. Next, we see Nina somehow accidentally stumble into the bride after splitting up and hiding in a major city. They manage to come full circle right back next to each other. How convenient. They then take refuge in a brothel full of benevolent, preachy prostitutes. The bride threatens the madam into keeping them hidden, great incentive, and Nina acts like the annoying, privileged zoomer she is and tells the woman who's been saving her ass with violence the whole show that she's too violent and needs therapy, even though she has directly benefited from the bride's behavior this entire time. The knights fuck off and the madam tells the bride to do the same. And it's that scratchy-voiced Indian actress who gets way too much fucking work, and I'm just so over her voice. It's not cool anymore. Sharora Agdashlu? Sharora? Shawarma? Doesn't matter, you're overexposed is the point. The bride says, fuck you, we're staying. We cut to a hospital where Rick Flag is rushed to the ER in a coma with a broken back and dies. But he gets better. Amanda and John are for some reason allowed to follow them in despite not being family so that they can get a description of Eric, whom apparently they have a profile on but did not recruit him because he's an insane retard. Amanda tells John to have operatives watch the airport so that they can stop Eric from stopping the bride from killing the princess. It doesn't work though because Eric has already boarded a plane and slaughtered most of the passengers and is threatening the pilot to take him to Picolistan, and somehow the co-pilot didn't hear that long, loud, unnecessary, and very threatening speech. You know what's smarter than having people watch out for Frankenstein? Just stop all flights from the States to Picolistan for national security reasons. You can do that. You're the government. Why am I better at this than her? We then see Weasel scampering into the woods where he encounters a bunch of angry wolves. More on that later. Phosphorus continues to hide from the Knights for absolutely no reason, which is easy because they're fucking blind. They still don't notice the radioactive glow that for some reason casts no light in the dark alleyway he's hiding in. He breaks into someone's house by melting the doorknob off and leaving a giant fucking gaping molten hole that they somehow don't notice, even though when he closes the door, we fucking see the spotlight shine through the fucking hole! That means they should see the hole. I guess they don't actually give a shit about catching the fucking literal monsters who want to kill their princess. Phosphorus looks around the house and sees photos of a happy family, which remind him of his own happy family that he apparently had in this universe, even though he was never portrayed as having one in the comics. Oh boy, I sense another fucking tragic backstory coming on. You cannot keep doing this. You cannot make every fucking misfit character Rocket Raccoon. Tragedy loses its meaning when every single character you ever write for has a tragic backstory that makes them misunderstood and traumatized and attempts to justify all of their horrible criminal misdeeds. You can't make me feel sorry for every single criminal, James. Some of them are just pieces of shit. We get a flashback of Alex telling his brave, beautiful Muslim wife he suddenly has for the first time ever about how both of their parents died of cancer, which he needed to remind her of, I guess, so he could justify taking money from criminals to continue his anti-cancer nuclear fusion treatment research. Okay. I'm not a doctor or a nuclear physicist, and neither is James, but I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Can nuclear fusion be used to assist in cancer treatment? I looked it up, and the answer is yes, but not in the way described here. Nuclear fusion can be used to create radioactive isotopes used in the production of chemo drugs and radiation machines that are used to treat cancer. But a nuclear fusion treatment that destroys cancer forever without harming the patient? No. Not a thing as far as we know. In fact, based on what we see later, I think Alex's machine is more likely to give you cancer than to cure it. But whatever. The real issue here is that if his research is yielding results, how the fuck can he not get legitimate funding? Why does he need the mob to help him with his life-saving cancer cure? In the comics, Alex was a nuclear physicist and secretly a career criminal who wished to build a nuclear power plant in Gotham strictly for the profits. The city denied the permits, and Alex received funding from criminal ally Rupert Thorne to build the plant offshore in secret, which meant many safety codes were not met because they needed the plant done in a hurry and off the books. Predictably, disaster struck and the reactor cracked open and blew up in his face. He miraculously survived, but his skin was permanently coated with hot, burning radioactive sand, turning him into Dr. Phosphorus, an unrepentant and completely insane villain driven by vengeance and madness and one of the most dangerous enemies Batman has ever faced. But for some reason, James Gunn really wanted to turn him into a poor, benevolent scientist and family man so that he would give a shit about the insane, radioactive supervillain who melts people's faces for fun. How nice. Anyway, the wife and kid immediately get fridged, and I am not kidding, 55 seconds after being introduced, so we can have some misery porn for Dr. Phosphorus. 55 seconds. I counted. These characters didn't even exist for a full minute before getting killed off to be tragic motivation for another character. What great representation for Muslim women. Why aren't the feminists complaining about this? Huh? Somebody call Gail Simone stat! This is even dumber and more ham-fisted than Weasel's retcon. They literally grab his hands while he is crying in agony and soak them in the blood of his dead wife and child so they can get his bloody fingerprints all over their bodies and the knife Thorne's men used to kill them. What the fuck even is subtlety, am I right? Then a cute little girl comes downstairs so James can steal the tension-building scene and payoff from Con Air because his supposed originality is just putting stuff from other good movies into superhero content for the normies who don't watch anything else. Wait, does he speak Bakolistani? Oh, who fucking cares? Then Weasel finds his wolf pack and suddenly starts acting like a man so he can play fetch with them. Cool.
And my wolf pack, it grew by one. So were there there were two of us in the wolf pack. I was alone first in the pack, and then Doug joined in later.
Shawarma Bangladesh offers to pimp out Nina and the bride because men are disgusting and want to fuck dead women and fish women, apparently. The bride tells the CEO of whore industries to fuck off because they have more respect for themselves than that, and then Scratchy Sadama pulls the whole all work is prostitution card on her, and the bride apparently has no retort. But Norm does.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Then some evil Irishmen come in to give us a reason to be afraid for the poor, innocent prostitutes. Then more weasel shit.
4 of us wolves running around the desert together in Las Vegas, looking for strippers and cocaine.
Phosphorus hangs out with the filthy child while she eats cereal so we can get more flashbacks that have nothing to do with the current situation, and so that you can think he might kill her to cover his tracks even though he has no reason to, since he's basically God. Dutch has a plan.
I got a plan, John.
You always got a plan, Dutch.
But first, he needs to explain to us why he killed Alex's family so you can feel even more bad for him and think he's actually a good person. Dutch funded the experiment so that when Alex cured cancer, they could get first dibs and sell it to the highest bidder. But Alex found out Thorne was going to give the cure to Bialia, a Middle Eastern country with a fascist regime. Oh, James, based on episode 3, the words fascist and Nazi mean nothing coming from you, but I get the point. Alex didn't want to let the mean men cure their people's cancer because I guess the people of Bialia don't deserve to live. He faked his research, thinking somehow the Bialian scientists wouldn't notice, and then he would, I don't really know. Give it away for free to every oncologist in America, or to the US government? I have no idea what his plan was after screwing over the crime lord and the fascist foreign country. And Dutch makes a very good point when Alex tries to justify why he cheated them out of his research.
My wife. She came from a country with an oppressive regime. She was sensitive about giving nuclear secrets to another.
Oh, what a prince. Right, guys? Throwing his dead wife under the bus.
No, I didn't think anyone would notice.
The con man's excuse is, I didn't think no one would know I was conning them.
And that's why his family is dead, and now Dutch is going to use this cancer-curing machine, which a Bialian scientist Dutch hired confirms in this scene is real and really works, to give him super cancer. Which it does. Somehow. Anyway, supervillain successfully created. Back at Hooker Ranch, Granny Goodtimes interrupts the Irish assholes from beating her girls, and they reveal that they are metahumans with electric powers. Then Nina grows some fish balls and smashes a bottle over his head so the bride can come to her rescue. Except she gets electric punched through a wall, which, as I stated previously, now no longer hurts her, so she gets back up and kills the prostitute puncher. Fun stuff. Weasel wakes up in a pile of wolves and hallucinates the little girl he got killed as the princess, and then remembers that the castle exists, so he goes there and leaves his new best bros behind. Then we see the consequences of Thorne's retardation immediately come back to bite him. Dr. Phosphorus lives, and he's insane now, and he goes straight to Thorne's mansion to kill him and his family and all the men who helped ruin Alex's life. Then he somehow legally seizes Thorne's assets and becomes the new kingpin of Gotham. How does that work? Don't fucking know, don't fucking care. Watch the pimp skeleton do a fun dance. Eat your slop, you fucking pig! Then Batman shows up and everyone is scared, and I guess Phosphorus goes to jail. Fuck it. In all honesty though, I know Phosphorus is a Batman villain from the comics, and Batman does manage to defeat him more than once, but in this show, the way that they've built him up, not only do I not understand how Batman managed to put Phosphorus in jail, I do not understand how anyone in Gotham could possibly be afraid of a vigilante in a bat costume when the most powerful crime lord in the city is an indestructible radioactive skeleton man who can melt your face off just by touching you and can't even be stopped by tanks. I think if this version of Phosphorus is around, Batman's reputation doesn't mean shit, and since we don't actually get a good look at Batman or see how he took Phosphorus down, I don't believe it could even happen. The girl's parents finally fucking wake up in time to see Phosphorus slowly giving her cancer by playing keepy-uppy with her. Then they point out the very clearly visible castle to him because he can't fucking see, I guess. Amanda is in the hospital hoping Rick wakes up to tell her the exact fucking thing she should already know, which is that Cersei's vision is bullshit. Frankenstein lands in Pekolistan, who fucking cares? Then we see the princess with an as-yet unseen metric fuck-ton of amethyst knights, which is supposed to be impressive and make us think of the Vision where she and her army took over the world, except we've only seen these losers get their asses handed to them by normal fucking dickhead militiamen with normal guns throughout the first few episodes, and we've never seen them successfully defeat a single opponent, so this means absolutely nothing. Then all of the remaining commandos conveniently arrive at the castle at the same time so they can walk in concert up to the castle to some more shitty indie music. Aren't you so excited for the conclusion? I am, but only because it's the culmination of a supreme amount of dumb fuckery that James isn't even aware that he wrote. Episode 7 opens with the birth of Nina, who is deformed to the point of her lungs showing outside of her body. Yikes, what a fun way to start the show, James. Jesus Christ. Now, I had never heard of such a condition, but upon Googling, which I will not show you because the images are pretty intense, there are similar birth defects in real life where some organs develop outside the abdominal cavity, so I guess that's what inspired this origin for Nina. Pretty fucked up, but okay, I guess that's what we're doing. In the Frankenstein Agent of S.H.A.D.E. series by Jeff Lemire, Nina was a geneticist working for S.H.A.D.E. who mutated her own body as part of her experiments to create a new version of the Creature Commandos, making her effectively the mother of the team. In this, the science smarts are given to her father, and Nina, as we've seen, is pretty much just a naive little girl with no skills, smarts, or confidence to speak of. Okay, weird decision to make for one of your few female characters, especially for somebody who spent 3 episodes shitting on guys he perceived as being misogynists, but it's okay when you do it though, right James? How many females in your show so far haven't been victimized or objectified or stereotyped? I'm just playing by yours and Hollywood's self-imposed rules, Mr. Woman Respecter. We then see Frankenstein making a fool of himself some more in a cab to set up that he is on his way to the castle. Then the commandos sneak into a security tower and incapacitate the guard inside. Nina raises doubts about the mission, and the bride retorts that Waller believes the princess presents a threat to the entire world and says that isn't stopping that from happening worth any potential risk. No, bride, because that's dumb. Amanda has no credibility with all the mistakes she has made that are canon to this show. Unleashing Enchantress on Midway City, allowing Starro to run rampant with no backup plan even though he would inevitably take over the Earth, sending Peacemaker to deal with Project Butterfly instead of the Justice League. The list goes on. Every appearance she's made so far has ended with disaster and her public embarrassment. Not to mention she has zero evidence to back up her claims right now, which you would already know if Rick Flag had been smart enough to call her instead of the princess. They then see some conveniently obscured security footage that makes them sure the princess is guilty. And then Frank arrives in the window and the bride shoots him immediately with her suppressed pistols, which somehow hurt him now because he's suddenly no longer bulletproof. And somehow can be heard by the Amethyst Knights from inside the palace. Her suppressed gunshots. What do words even mean? What good are they? Frankenstein tries to tell the bride about Rick, and she completely ignores him and seemingly executes him? So can they fucking die or not? Are they just regular people brought back to life? Then why are they super strong? Why doesn't anything make any fucking sense? They flee to the back garden, which I guess is unmonitored, and oh fuck me, a flashback? Now? We're so close to the end! What important information are you telling me now that you couldn't have told me 6 episodes ago? Nina's father created an iron lung for her to be able to breathe as a child, and her mother was a psycho piece of shit who doesn't want her daughter to be alive because she has a completely treatable and workable disability, so she abandons them. Great. Tragic backstory achieved. Can we get back to the fucking plot? I say plot incredibly loosely, by the way. The squad are going to melt through the back wall of the castle into the garden. I don't know shit about chemistry or physics, but apparently Dr. Phosphorus can melt through an armored tank instantaneously, but stone walls take a bit longer. Fuck if I know whether that makes any sense. Nina continues to have a difficult childhood until her father decides to mutate her ass into a fish woman. These flashbacks are genuinely pointless. They have not and do not develop Nina's character enough for us to give a shit why she is the way she is, which I could say the same for most of the main characters, in fact. The bride is the only one we get a shortcut for because she's based on a famous character from other sources, but with her they retell us her origin, which we already knew, and nothing else about her history, which this show makes up and we have zero details on besides a montage of her being stalked by Eric. Why do people think James is a good character writer again? Oh, because of that one successful comic book movie he made where he wasn't the sole credited writer? Got it. The princess wants to go for her morning swim, which the show tells us she does every morning, but didn't bother to set up till right this second, where it puts her in a compromised position. How convenient. Sergei points out how fucking stupid that is because the squad are on their way to kill her, but this is just doubling down on Alana not hiding when she definitely should in a secure bunker underground in a different country on the moon. The commandos make it through the giant glowing molten hole in the castle wall and nobody notices because the knights are a bigger joke than the sons of Themyscira. Weasel spurgs out when he sees the princess because they played fetch that one time and the show still can't decide whether he's a man or an animal. Flashback. Nina's father is trying to get her into a private school, and now that she's a fish person, she still has to wear a huge clunky breathing apparatus everywhere she goes, so mutating her actually didn't even solve the problem that he was trying to solve in the first place. This stupid fucking show, I swear to God. He also says that she can only breathe underwater, which is not fucking true. We've seen her breathe and speak out of the water multiple times already. Not for a long period of time, but she can do it is the point. I wonder what they're trying to set up here. Oh, also, Nina's a fucking genius at like 10 or whatever. Hasn't come up a single time on the missions or helped them at all, so who fucking cares what languages she can read Shakespeare in. She immediately gets bullied for being weird looking. Go fucking figure. Flag wakes up enough to tell Amanda what a fucking retard she is because he was too retarded to tell her earlier. The squad ask how they're going to get to the princess with all these guards around, and they give Nina a look that says, "Aha! Water!" When what they should be saying is, "Aha! Phosphorus!" Because he's still insanely powerful and should just melt all the guards and walk into the pond when the princess dives in and boil her alive. But no, we need Nina to do something so we can have a payoff we didn't really set up. In school, Nina is bullied some more, and then she runs away from home. Boo fucking who. The princess goes for a swim, and they tell Nina to go stab her, because the only way to get to her is underwater, which we've already established is not accurate. The one thing these flashbacks have established is that Nina has no combat skills, which is true, and is also why the knife is a bad idea. We see Nina photographed at a pond in Star City, and Animal Control decide to hunt her down, and so does her father. They find her and capture her, and outside the water, she suddenly can't fucking speak, so they treat her like an animal. The problem with this is that the minute they do a DNA test on her, her results will pop up as Nina Mazursky, a human person with a medical record. Her DNA was altered, not replaced. She's still partially human. But we need everyone to other her and treat her like shit so you feel bad. Also, nobody listens when her father tries to push through the crowd to tell them that the clearly humanoid fish woman is a person. And of course, James Gunn's patented killer cop stereotypes decide to shoot an unarmed, non-aggressive, middle-aged man in the back instead of just tackling and cuffing him, you know, because all cops are bastards, says the millionaire in LA who probably has his own private mansion with armed security. Anyway, he dies and Nina gets arrested for fishing without a license. Amanda and John go to McPherson's and find her body, because apparently nobody called the cops to report all the noise from the fight between Flag and Clayface or the giant green monster man who carried him out of the house. This is what convinces Amanda she was wrong. Not McPherson's bullshit credentials, not Cersei being a literal brainwashing sorceress and known criminal, just the bodies. Is Amanda a DEI hire? Be honest with me, because in the comics she was actually competent. In these movies and shows, it really doesn't make sense how she rose up to such a high-level government position with how fucking dumb she is. Amanda finally calls to tell the squad to abort, but it's too late. Nina's in the water, ready to kill the princess, and we get a really cringe cover of the doors. Weasel tries to warn Ilana, and Phosphorus stops him, but not before Weasel bites him? How can Weasel's teeth hurt Phosphorus when bullets and a broken neck won't? And the bite burns Weasel's mouth? Meaning he was burnt just from touching Phosphorus's skin. But his clothes don't burn, and touching the little girl didn't burn her, but Rick punching him and Weasel biting him did. Fuck it. Consistency is impossible, I guess. Nina tries to pull Ilana down to stab her, but has no idea how to use a knife, and Ilana, I guess, does, and reverses it on her and kills her. Good thing she had the knife, because if she didn't, Nina could have just dragged Ilana down till she drowned, and there would be nothing she could do about it. So the bride got Nina killed. Good job. Then Sergei tells everyone to stand down because Amanda called off the hit last minute and far too late. Phosphorus cauterizes his own bite wounds somehow, then he makes a joke about getting a handjob from the Knights but says they would get burned and that he hasn't been touched for 15 years. Yeah, I don't even care how his powers work anymore. He makes no fucking sense. The bride goes to confront the princess because despite Amanda telling her they were wrong, she is still suspicious of Ilana. She concludes that Cersei was telling the truth based on two pieces of evidence. Clayface was the figure they saw talking to Ilana on the security tapes, which to her means that Ilana hired Clayface to discredit McPherson, which is unnecessary because McPherson couldn't have possibly known anything she told Amanda in the first place. On top of that, the security footage could have been faked just as easily as Cersei's vision. Easier, in fact. Second, it's very fucking convenient that when discussing whatever he was discussing with Ilana, the shapeshifter chose to take his very obvious shapeshifter form instead of the form of a normal person so that it would look normal on camera and then this twist wouldn't be possible. The other piece of evidence is that fucking Sergei, the guy who tried to defend the Commandos to the princess, was at the base spying for the princess. That's how they knew McPherson was talking to Waller and why they decided to have Clayface impersonate her to discredit her so that the Commandos would think she and Cersei were lying and that Ilana was innocent. So Sergei knew the princess was evil the whole time. Why did both he and she pretend Cersei was misleading the Commandos when there was nobody around to benefit from hearing their ruse? It was just for the audience so that we could think that she was innocent up until this twist. But even once we have the twist, where we definitely confirm that Ilana has been a Machiavellian scheming villain cleverly plotting this whole thing from the very beginning, we're still left with the question, why? Why did she do all of this? Why would Ilana want to start World War III and potentially destroy the world? Oh, never mind, she's fucking dead. I guess we'll never know. What was the point of this show? Why are we here again? Let's wrap things up before I get into that. Oh, also before, when the bride fired her suppressed pistols in a guard tower on the perimeter of the property outside the main castle, the guards heard it from inside the castle and came running to check. Now, inside the princess's office, inside the fucking castle, the same guns, still with suppressors on, are Hollywood dead fucking silent, and nobody hears the person they were supposed to be protecting get assassinated right upstairs above them. Fuck off! Oh, and to be clear, the bride being promoted to team leader and given an expanded squad in the next scene is her reward for a job well done. Despite the fact that the job was not well done, and now the US has essentially declared war on Pakistan by assassinating their monarch without approval from Congress or the president and with no evidence of wrongdoing on Ilana's part. Amanda's last order was not to kill Ilana, and the bride did it anyway based on circumstantial evidence that she doesn't even have a physical copy of. She violated Amanda's order and as a result has caused an international incident. If Waller doesn't have her executed, she should at least be off the team and in prison for the rest of her life. But going forward, the US should now be at war with a foreign nation that they promised military aid to in exchange for resources. The US government went back on their deal with a third world country and executed their leader. America should be fucked on the world stage for the rest of the DCU. And actually, in retrospect, if Amanda isn't even supposed to be able to run this kind of a team anymore, why was she tasked with providing protection to the princess on the US government's behalf? And since they trusted her with such a sensitive matter, foreign relations with the US are permanently and irreparably damaged. Fuck! Every time I think about the plot of the show, it gets worse. Then they casually and nonchalantly walk out of the castle with nobody stopping them. Back at Belle Reve, the bride is introduced to her new team consisting of Phosphorus, Nosferata, a viewer was able to confirm that character's identity for me, shout out to the man of movies, Kalis the Mummy, fucking Weasel, a new and improved GI robot, so if you felt sad for his death at episode 3, fuck you, and King Shark. That's it. That's the end. You fucking kidding me? No follow-up on Flag, no answers about the princess, that's just it? It just fucking ends? Nope, just kidding. We get a post-credit scene of Eric. He's still alive. Then it fucking ends. Again. Well, that's it for the very much not Creature Commandos. Man of Movies cleverly described it as Halloween-themed Suicide Squad, and that's exactly what it is. What a complete and utter waste of time. No wonder most people didn't bother. But since we've already come this far, what do you say we dissect this corpse and figure out what went wrong, eh? The big question is, how does somebody manage to write something that has no plot? James Gunn wrote these episodes as spec scripts just prior to being promoted to co-CEO of the newly formed DC Studios that would be tasked with relaunching the DC Universe on film going forward. And it shows. These scripts were written with no plan and no idea how to integrate them into the larger DCU. The project only got greenlit because it was the only thing actually written and ready to go prior to the announcement of the relaunch. They literally only made this show because it was just sitting there. It was all they had. How fucking pathetic. Coincidentally, that is also how Clayface got greenlit. Mike Flanagan supposedly already had the script written, so they said, fuck it, let's make that. What a well thought out and considered approach to launching an overarching cinematic universe. Whoever finishes their scripts first wins. That might explain why the show is completely character-focused and the plot feels like an afterthought. An excuse to get our characters into action so that we can use that action to explore their characters. Not saying we actually do explore their characters, but that was clearly James' intention. So let's summarize the plot while taking into account the issues we've discovered, if you can remember back that far. Amanda Waller wants to assemble a team to take down Cersei, the Amazonian sorceress who for some reason publicly announced her intention to invade Pakistan to kill its monarch, Princess Ilana Rostovic. Makes sense for Amanda to want to stop her, does not make sense for her to send the Suicide Squad. This is a universe with established heroes like Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. It would be much more prudent to send in Wonder Woman or Superman, who have been known to do favors for the US government, but also just because they would intervene if one of Diana's arch-enemies were threatening a foreign dignitary. As for Cersei, why does she want to kill the princess? Supposedly because she had a vision that the princess will destroy the world, which doesn't make any sense, but also might not even come true because not every prophecy or future vision comes to pass. On top of that, why is Cersei suddenly so altruistic? World War III is not guaranteed to destroy the world because what does that even mean? But if that is her goal, why is she going about it so stupidly? Why does she need the sons of Themyscira? The short answer is she doesn't. The sons are just here for James to attack his critics before they even watch the show to criticize it. She didn't need to loudly invade Pekolistan with an army of douchebags. She could have used her vast magical power to either teleport into her room or disguise herself with an illusion to get close to the princess and kill her. If she had, the US government would have never even found out about the assassination plot till it was too late. Then the show would have been about the US investigating an assassination instead of trying to prevent one, which could have been interesting. But the plot we are given is complete nonsense from the jump, and it continues to spiral out from there and infect the whole show with stupid. So Amanda wants to stop Cersei, but due to her many public fuck-ups, she can no longer use the human prisoners of Task Force X, and she didn't think to call an actual superhero, so her new solution is to do exactly what she did before, but try to argue a shitty semantic loophole that somehow means she isn't breaking the law. Using non-human prisoners is still against their will without government authorization. This is obviously a stupid plan because the minute the public finds out that you're up to your old shenanigans, it should be straight to prison for her.
Right to jail, right away.
Especially because the non-human prisoner argument is not only an obviously disingenuous excuse to violate the rights of sentient creatures, it's largely factually not true for most of the characters they use in this show.
No trial, no nothing. Journalists, we have a special jail for journalists.
The bride is literally human. She's made of human parts. She's sentient, she eats, drinks, sleeps, breathes, and fucks.
Right to jail.
Dr. Phosphorus is a metahuman.
Jail.
Nina is a mutated human.
You right to jail.
Weasel is somewhere in between because the show can't decide if he's sentient or not.
Believe it or not, jail.
Not to mention, even if they were somehow technically not human on a genetic level, they all got a trial and were tried as humans, which means they get human rights protections.
We have the best patients in the world. Because of jail.
The only one she could actually get away with using is G.I. Robot, and the very fact that he exists, a combat robot that advanced that was engineered all the way back in World War II, means the government could easily reverse engineer a modern army of robot soldiers if they haven't done so already. He completely invalidates the idea of using superpowered convicts against their will when you can mass-produce an army of combat robots programmed to follow orders. The final agent affecting the plot is Alanna herself. What does she want in all this, and what is her plan? When she found out Cersei was coming to kill her, she supposedly began constructing a huge convoluted plot to make a deal with the US to protect her from Cersei and to make sure that they never found out her malevolent intentions. But how on earth can she come up with this plan when she has no idea what Cersei wants or why she's doing what she does? Cersei had a vision that convinced her that Alanna was a threat to the planet, but she only disclosed this to Amanda Waller when she got back to the States. How could Alanna know about Cersei's vision? Sergei was sent to spy on them, but getting him in there in the first place was already a tall order, and he was only dressed as a common soldier. There's no way he could get close enough to the interrogation room to hear Cersei or Waller or anything they disclosed once inside. On top of that, she had to know that Professor McPherson confirmed the validity of Cersei's vision, which should not have been convincing anyway, but then had to hire Clayface in person in Pekolistan to be caught on camera with him, not have her soldiers delete that footage that incriminates them both, fly him to the States, have him kill McPherson, have him publicly make a fool out of her so that Flagg could see there was something off about her, which he only cared about because she slept with him, which means she also had to know Flagg was watching him at the college, then have Flagg tell Waller that McPherson was a fake and that the vision was a lie so that they wouldn't try to kill her. Okay, what the fuck? First of all, if the whole point of seducing Flagg was to have someone on Amanda's side who was sympathetic to the princess, and to have that person catch Clayface and find out that McPherson was a fake, why did Clayface try to kill Rick and keep the information from getting back to Amanda so that she could call off the commandos? That's the whole point of this ruse, to be caught impersonating the professor to discredit what she said about the vision. Why would he try to kill Rick and fuck up the whole plan as a result? Clayface doing that almost got Alanna killed because the assassination isn't cancelled till the very last minute in the last episode. But Alanna survives the attempt on her life anyway, all by herself. But before the plan even gets that far, why did Alanna even bother negotiating with the US in the first place? Between hiring Clayface and Gorilla Grodd appearing in Cersei's vision, many viewers have inferred that Alanna has some sort of association with supervillains, possibly even the Legion of Doom. If that's true, and it's actually villains backing Alanna that make her a worldwide threat, then why wouldn't Cersei be trying to go after the villains instead? Why wouldn't Alanna get villains to protect her from Cersei? If she's working with a big villain organization like the Legion or the Secret Society of Supervillains, why not just have them reach out to Cersei and either threaten her, bribe her, kill her, or have her join the team as well? It would help to know anything about Ilana so we knew why she supposedly had ambitions of world domination, but we never get an answer about that, her past, her motivations, or anything that might inform her actions in the plot before the bride kills her and it no longer matters. Rick and the Commandos don't have much agency at all as far as the mechanics of the plot are concerned, they just kind of react to what the other characters are doing. Wow, I just realized the only characters with any agency in the show are women. Anyway, the women who do manage to enact their will on the plot all go about it in the absolute dumbest way possible so that it all goes nowhere and has no effect on the future of the DCU. This whole plot should be over or solved another way before the show even starts, and once it's over, none of what happened has any consequence. I know in the end all fictional stories are essentially pointless, they're only meant to entertain us. But this one is the most pointless. And that's just the plot. As for the characters, most of them are underdeveloped with only surface-level character traits that, despite how much time the show devotes to character development flashbacks, are not reinforced by the flashbacks. Let's go down the list and see how deep we can get with our main cast. The Bride. James Gunn himself described her as the lead character of the show. So what do we know about her? What are her character traits and personality? Well, she's mean, I guess. Has kind of a laconic wit. Likes to drink. I think she may have been a mercenary at some point, but I'm entirely basing that on the fact that she has a set of personalized pistols. We're told pretty much nothing about her life prior to being imprisoned in Bel Rev. The most we learn about her is from her flashback that depicts Victor Frankenstein as her creator, father, and lover. That certainly creates a troubling psychology, or at least you think it would. It's certainly a fucked up and creepy relationship, but it doesn't seem to bother her at all. All of her trauma is related to Eric being an overbearing suitor because she was made for him and him getting jealous of and murdering her father/lover, Victor. She didn't seem to have any problem with the nature of her relationship to Victor. Everything is Eric's fault, and all that did was make her hate him. Beyond that, I don't know a thing about the Bride, and all the things they told us were unnecessary. I could have assumed a lot of the details about her early life because she's the Bride of Frankenstein, a well-established character in the larger pop culture zeitgeist. But they change all of those things that we might have taken for granted and then don't give us any details on the new history they've added for her. I know she had a traumatic experience when she was young, and now she's a mean, cold-shouldered badass. I don't know how she was imprisoned, I don't know what she values, and I don't know what her goals are. She's just a stock-standard, strong female protagonist. I'm not gonna waste time analyzing the character of a fucking robot. I will reiterate his intentionally broad and simplistic programming that only exists so that James can call people he doesn't like Nazis and then brutally murder them. His programming is stupid and his personality is one note, and despite that, he's the most entertaining and useful character in the show. The entire team should be replaced by an army of GI robots. Again, why? Why bother? He's a big fucking rat man. He's not even a character, just a dumb joke that James liked and then tried his damnedest to make you feel bad for at the last minute so you would think his writing is deep and emotional. It's shallow pandering and a waste of time. One of the more entertaining characters in the show, but the forced development they try to give him in the flashback really only serves to undermine the sarcastic, amoral, and vicious villain they start him out as. After you watch him kill without remorse in such brutal and merciless fashion for 5 episodes, I have a very hard time believing he was a virtuous family man who wanted to cure cancer. On top of that, mechanically, it makes absolutely no sense that he's in the show at all. The overpowered nature of his abilities make him impossible for Waller to control with their compliance chip technology, and he poses a danger to Rick and the rest of the team by even being in their presence. I enjoy the character, but he was a terrible choice for this team and this show. Yet another absolutely pointless character, and due to the amount of changes they made from her comic book counterpart, there is basically nothing interesting about her. She's a pathetic victim and an annoying little sister stereotype meant to endear her to the Bride and therefore endear both of them to the audience. I was unconvinced. Eric is the biggest insult to his comic book counterpart and only exists in the show to act as James Gunn's indictment on men. Eric is toxic masculinity incarnate, a dumb, greedy, selfish, narcissistic stalker who treats women like property and kills indiscriminately whenever his emotions get out of control. He does literally nothing in the whole show, and he is an insult to Mary Shelley, Grant Morrison, and anyone who enjoys the Frankenstein character. Rick had potential to be interesting, and I assumed he would be our main character, but as a straight white male in a modern story, he had to be immediately emasculated, relegated to a B-plot, and then summarily removed from the show halfway through. He has the most going on emotionally with the death of his son in The Suicide Squad, and as of right now, he's the only character from this show confirmed to be appearing in future DC projects. But I can't say they did enough for him here for me to care about seeing him again. Lastly, I want to talk about Amanda Waller, because this show made me realize something that's been a problem from the minute Viola Davis appeared on screen as the character way back in David Ayer's Suicide Squad. This version of Amanda is an absolute moron. I love the character of Amanda Waller from the comics and cartoons, and Viola Davis is pitch-perfect casting, but they keep writing her to be a cruel and incompetent retard who kills off her own staff without cause, condemns innocent civilians to a horrible death, and consistently gets put into a position where her criminal task force gets leverage over her or publicly embarrasses her, and yet she never faces any consequences for her many, many crimes. In the comics, Amanda is a very shrewd leader, strategist, and intelligence operative. It takes a lot to get one over on her or get her into a position where she doesn't have the upper hand. This version is horribly written and is only saved by the strong performance from Davis. The other characters on the show are far too thin to analyze in depth, and the main cast don't have much more depth than their surface-level traits and powers. The flashbacks do not do enough to make me give a shit about any of them, and the entire show is mostly flashbacks. Not to mention their powers are inconsistent, and there really isn't any reason for them to be on this team in the first place. Characters are the area of writing that James consistently gets praise for, but he really dropped the ball here in my opinion. And with a world full of interesting characters like the DC Universe, you have no excuse for me to not give a single shit about anybody in your main cast. Speaking of worlds... Creating a world to set your fiction in can be a long and difficult process, especially when you're making something original that you have to build from the ground up. James is very lucky that he did not need to do that. He's working within the DC Universe. He has decades worth of established lore and multiple continuities within that lore that he can pull from. But James Gunn is a trailblazing auteur indie filmmaker, don't you know? A creative genius who does not want to be stifled by the works of other lesser writers who came before him, even though he has literally been hired to adapt the works of those writers to the screen rather than his own original content. Genuinely, the man has a gold mine worth of pre-established lore to pull from, but James would rather do things the hard way and create his own DC continuity that doesn't line up with any comic or the film series that came directly before him. He's chosen to start fresh. Except for all the projects he's already made. He wants to keep those storylines and histories for the characters and actors he's decided to retain. That's really all he's salvaging, characters played by people he likes. Not the events those characters have already taken part in, you know, unless he wants that particular event, like the death of Rick Flag Jr. But that poorly received Suicide Squad movie that both Rick and Amanda first appeared in? Nah, pretend that didn't happen. How does that line up at the timeline? No fucking idea. Apart from picking at the corpses of his own work, though, James' attempt at establishing new lore and continuity in this cartoon is laughable to downright non-existent. The Amazons are the greatest example of James attempting to add lore to the world, but he still can't clarify it enough for the audience to have a concrete understanding of their place in the DC Universe. The world is aware of the Amazons, but nobody has been to the island. This would lead me to believe that Wonder Woman is already an established hero, and that is potentially confirmed by Cersei's vision, but it could also just be a vision of the future in which Diana is a hero. For all we know right now, she may not have even left the island yet. This is a problem for the show because he allows a character like Dr. McPherson to exist even though her job and the knowledge required for it to exist are logistically impossible based on dialogue he decided to add in. Nobody has been to Themyscira, and yet there's a college course that centers around studying the island and its culture. Wonder Woman ought to be the first encounter man's world has had with the Amazons, but we can't confirm whether that's true. It might be Cersei for all we know. On top of that, this universe seems to be full of established superheroes, but there's no details about who these heroes are, what their status is in relation to the government, whether there's a Justice League, how long any of them have been around, what they value, or what they've done already off-screen to be revered or respected as heroes. Because James Gunn doesn't want to focus on the mainstream marketable heroes that made DC the successful company it once was. He wants to hang out with his misfits and weirdos and make them more powerful than Superman or Wonder Woman. He doesn't think about how Harley Quinn taking down Starro or Weasel taking down Cersei makes the heroes we love and have yet to see in this universe immediately irrelevant. If villains that powerful can be taken down by the Suicide Squad, we don't even need the Justice League. So why am I watching? What investment am I as a DC fan supposed to have in a brand new film universe where Superman is a chump and Weasel is the deadliest person on Earth? Gunn has released one project in the DCU so far, and it has already made a joke out of every character he wants us to be excited for in the future because a Rat Man and a Disney princess are capable of taking them out. All this to say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You have a century's worth of great stories, characters, and world building to pull from. Use it. Those comics sold for a reason. You may be a good writer in a vacuum, James, but you're not a better writer collectively than the thousands of writers who have come and gone and left their mark on the DC universe over the past 80+ years. You have access to their knowledge. Do not discard it because you think you know better. Comparisons of your DCU to the many other iterations are inevitable. Do yourself a favor and give the fans what they want. Take advantage of the good stuff, ignore the bad, and try to at least have it resemble the thing people already love. Thematically, this show wears its heart on its sleeve like all of James Gunn's work. And like all of his other work, it has the exact same themes. That just because you're perceived as weird or an outcast or unusual doesn't mean you're a monster. That friends are the family you choose. That people who are pretty on the outside are sometimes ugly on the inside, or vice versa. Don't judge a book by its cover, blah blah blah. Oh, and also, men are all selfish, rapey monsters? And all cops are psychotic, trigger-happy murderers, apparently. All work is prostitution, so sex work is better than contract killing? Anybody I don't like is a Nazi. Genuinely, I can't work out what this show is saying that some people are so receptive to outside of some blatantly political pandering about groups like the Sons of Themyscira, or cops, or the US government, or men in general being bad. I guess it's the pop music. It's like catnip for normies. And it helps cover up that the show is about nothing with nothing to say and made for nobody in particular. Nothing was gained, but everything was lost because this is James' first impression for fans as the head of DC Studios. Good luck with Superman, I guess. Stop. In conclusion, the show was a bit of a waste of time. We know from the production that it was an afterthought, a half-baked, half-finished project that they rushed into animation so that HBO Max can continue to say that it has premium original DC content coming out so that the investors don't sell all their stock, take the money, and run. There was no passion or integrity in this show. It completely ignores or shits on the original material it's based on and does nothing to increase interest in future DC projects. This was just another James Gunn vanity project like Peacemaker, only saved from the scrap heap because he's the big man in charge now and can greenlight whatever he wants. And he is doing exactly that. He doesn't care what fans want. He doesn't care if this new universe fails. It's all about James Gunn's ego. It's about him becoming the Kevin Feige of the DC universe and rubbing his potential success in Kevin's face after his big public firing from Marvel Studios. He doesn't care about DC. He doesn't care about you. And I don't believe for a second he cares about Superman. But I will be there when that movie comes out to let you know if I'm wrong. Thank you to everyone who watched these reviews. I've appreciated the feedback and the conversations, and I'm glad I'm not the only one who feels this way about the current state of comic book movies and TV shows. I don't have any concrete plans for future videos, but I do have a couple things in the works, and I will give you an update on those when I make some progress. For now, thank you all again for watching, and I'll see you around.